Chapter 1487. A few days later. In the depths of the dark, silent galaxy, starlight shone down, illuminating the endless cosmos. It was like the radiant St. Hall. Yongye Chushue's and Luo Shue's eyes glittered with dreamy brilliance. Yongye Chushue murmured, "Is this the origin of my lost divine realm, the Star River divine realm? Her beauty is out of this world and boundlessly beautiful." Luo Shue could not help but sigh. Although the Star River God territory is less than 1/10 of the Lost Nation, the beauty of the Star River is not something the Lost Nation possesses. The Lost Nation was a world that was submerged underwater and could not see the light of day. But the Star River God realm was completely different. Compared to them, the others were not interested at all. Their gazes were firmly locked onto the land of light, and their expressions were complicated. According to the news we have received, the Eastern Road fleet that my evil creature serves is located in the cavern world of the All-Access Merchant God. There are not many strong people around him. Please let me go and end the life of this evil creature. Accompanying the West Road fleet, the secular sword god and the others successfully returned to the territory of the God Realm Empire. Secular sword god could no longer suppress his killing intent and asked for permission. Su Yu said, "Sure, Xing deity, all-access merchant god, you two go together, just in case." The three of them accepted the order and immediately disguised themselves as ordinary fleet crew members and went ashore. As for the West Road fleet, because they had a complete team, especially Emu, who listened to Su Yu's orders completely, their return did not raise any suspicions. In the cabin, Yongye Wuheng frowned slightly. "Brother Su, don't you hate traitors the most? Why is it so calm now?" He could still vividly remember the murderous intent he felt when he first heard that a god had betrayed the divine domain empire. Yongye Wuheng was puzzled by his attitude at this moment. Su Yu said indifferently, "Traitors are not necessarily all hateful." The five of them were stunned and did not understand what he meant. The secular sword god, the Xing deity, and the all-access merchant god disguised themselves and went deep into the hinterland of the former all-access cavern world. The former all-access aristocratic family had been razed to the ground, and a splendid port had been rebuilt on top of the ruins. 10 huge battleships of the Eastern Fleet were stationed there. The port was heavily guarded, and no outsiders were allowed to approach this important military area. But for a top-notch deity like the secular sword god, ordinary defenses were useless. They had successfully infiltrated the central organization of the port, the East Fleet Command Center. Unexpectedly, the defense inside the command center was even tighter. As soon as they sneaked in, they alerted the 4 hidden experts at the peak of the 5th heaven. They were dressed in navy blue treasured clothes, which made them invisible. Not to mention the secular sword god, even the real experts in the 4th heaven might not be able to find them. "Who is it?" The 4 sentinel gods were immediately alerted. The huge commotion quickly spread in all directions and alerted the patrolling sentries in the command center. They all rushed to the enemy's location. For a time, the command center was in chaos. The secular sword god and the others sensed that something was wrong and immediately fled. The 4 hidden sentries waited for the open sentries to lock onto their auras and work together to chase them out of the headquarters. In the command center, the vice-captain of the fleet, Bu Rui, was drinking and having fun with a group of women in purple. The zither and the flute were decadent, and the spring scenery was warm. It was filled with the aura of decadence and extravagance. "Come on, it's Rong Er's turn." Bu Rui drunkenly picked up the chin of a charming girl and made her drink as punishment. At this moment, a loud warning sounded outside. Bu Rui frowned, threw the glass on the table, and shouted, "Adjutant, what happened?" The adjutant, who was waiting outside, did not move at the moment. "Adjutant, come here." Bu Rui flicked his sleeves and roared. However, it was still quiet outside, and even the disturbance gradually disappeared, leaving only a dead silence. Bu Rui's heart shuddered and a warning sign rose. It was also at this moment that he heard a voice that almost scared him out of his wit. "Bastard! I haven't seen you for a few years. You are not so good, but your temper has grown." Clang! The door outside the house was suddenly kicked open, and 3 figures stood majestically in the sun. The leader, carrying a long cyan sword, was like a sharp sword, exuding amazing sword chi. "Father! Father!" Burui's lips trembled, and his whole body trembled uncontrollably. He stood up as if he had seen a ghost. So much so that the charming girl in his arms was overturned to the ground. His pupils were wide open, and his face was full of fear. His throat kept swallowing saliva, and he said, "You! Why are you here?" Secular Sword God's eyes were full of absolute indifference. "Why? Are you disappointed that I didn't die? Bastard!" Burui hurriedly stepped back and said in a trembling voice, "Father, you surrender. I will plead with the female empress to keep you alive. As long as you are willing to surrender." "Ha ha ha!" Secular Sword God looked up and laughed. It was a laughter of extreme anger, but also a laughter of complete despair. His eyes were angry like an angry beast, and he stared at him with a murderous look. "I, Butiani, have been wise all my life. Why did I give birth to a bastard like you?" Clang! He pulled out his long sword, and the cold blade pointed directly at Burui. Burui staggered and fell to the ground. He knocked over the table carelessly, and all the food on the table was scattered on him. He was extremely embarrassed. "No. Father, I was wrong. Rui was wrong. Please don't kill me." Burui knelt on the ground, begging for mercy. Secular Sword God silently closed his eyes, and a drop of old tears flowed from the corner of his eyes. But as he opened his eyes again, the tear was evaporated by the powerful divine power, leaving only a pair of dry and cold eyes. "Rui, remember I once taught you that, as the successor of the sword principle, life is like a sword, and death is also like a sword, which can be broken but not bent. You have forgotten all about it." Staring at Burui, who knelt on the ground and begged for mercy, Secular Sword God shook his head in disappointment and coldly said, "You have made too big a mistake. As a father, I will kill you to wash away your sins. In your next life, be a good man." A flash of dazzling sword light came out, illuminating the whole room. Burui was bound to die. However, at this moment, 4 terrible breaths suddenly came. The strength of their breaths was comparable to that of the Dakini. They were all top masters in the level 4 heaven. "Oh, Secular Sword God, I have been waiting for you for a long time." Some mocking words fell, accompanied by a powerful sealing technique, which sealed the sword of Secular Sword God. The sword light solidified, only a foot away from killing Burui. Secular Sword God's face changed slightly, and he immediately swept his sword horizontally, drawing out a shocking sword energy. At the same time, he withdrew and shouted, "Retreat, it's an ambush!" The Xing deity and the all-access merchant god's faces changed greatly, and they hurriedly retreated from the room. However, 3 powerful auras came from behind him like raging winds and fierce waves. The 3 of them dealt with 1 person each, and as expected, they were all injured and sent flying. As they flew backwards, the 3 of them broke out of the encirclement in different directions. However, there was another person in the sky. He caught the sword chi of Secular Sword God effortlessly and threw out a powerful talisman with a flip of his palm. The talisman burst into golden light and enveloped them. The 3 of them hit the light shield and were all bounced back. Even with the strength of their divine powers, they couldn't do anything to this light shield. This was an ambush for Secular Sword God. They knew that Secular Sword God would come back to kill them, so they set up an ambush nearby. Swish! 4 figures descended. For Suyu, they were strange faces, but for Secular Sword God and the others, they couldn't be more familiar. They were 4 of the top 10 experts secretly cultivated by Dakini. especially the one in the sky, named Lian Jie, ranked first among the top 10 experts. He was obviously the leader of this operation. Lian Jie was handsome and reserved. He laughed and said, "I've been waiting for you for several years, and you're finally back. Rui, you performed well just now." Bu Rui, who was embarrassed, regained his composure and calmness. He patted the food and wine on his body, cupped his fists, and said, "It's my duty to serve the female empress." He didn't look like he was indulging in wine and women at all. Everything was a trap that had been waiting for Secular Sword God for several years. Secular Sword God scolded angrily, "Unfilial son." Lian Jie said calmly, "A wise man submits to circumstances. Rui's performance is so excellent that I think he will be appreciated by the female empress. Entering the ruins to cultivate him is just around the corner. As for you," Lian Jie's eyes turned cold, "do you think you can fool us with some camouflage? To tell you the truth, in order to wait for Secular Sword God, we patiently lurked for 3 years. I thought you would come back to kill the unfilial son. I didn't expect that you would kill 3 birds with 1 stone." The Xing deity and the all-access merchant god also fell into the trap. The hearts of the 3 men sank. Yes, if they were smart enough, they should have guessed that one day they would come to find Bu Rui for revenge. Lian Jie said, "Rui, I'll give you another chance to make a contribution. The opportunity to kill the 3 traitors is right in front of you." He wanted Bu Rui to kill his father. Bu Rui was expressionless, staring at the Secular Sword God indifferently. He pulled out his sword backhandedly and said lightly, "Father, I will remember your teachings. The sword master will die with the sword, and I will send you on your way with the swordsmanship you taught." Secular Sword God sneered, "Unfilial son, you have tarnished my swordsmanship." Bu Rui closed his eyes and mercilessly slashed his sword at the heads of the 3 men. The 3 men wanted to resist, but they were suppressed by the boundless momentum of the 4 strong men. They seemed to be shackled and couldn't move. Seeing that they were about to be killed on the spot, suddenly, a more powerful momentum shattered the light shroud. The 4 masters staggered, and the momentum they released, in the face of such a huge momentum, was like a wave in a stream compared to a huge wave in the sea, annihilated in an instant. The 4 men, including Lian Jie, fell to the ground with horror in their eyes. "Who is it?" Swish. A silver-haired figure, leading 4 men and women with great cultivation, slowly descended. With every step they took, the 4 men and women seemed to have an additional 10,000 feet of weight on their bodies. What shocked them even more was that when they looked directly at the silver-haired youth, they couldn't help but have the impulse to worship him. This feeling was something they had only felt when they were in the fairy realm, facing the gods. On the contrary, Secular Sword God and the others were overjoyed. "Suyu." "What? You are Suyu?" Lian Jie and the others were shocked. This person was a miraculous legendary figure in the Great Eastern Alliance, in the world of divine remains, in the demon dimension, and in the Great Western Alliance. There was even a legend that he fell into the heavenly lake and was doomed eternally. Why did he suddenly appear here? Thinking that he had never been on good terms with Dakini, and looking at the happy expressions of Secular Sword God and the others, their hearts sank to the bottom. Secular Sword God and the others got rid of the momentum and stepped forward, saying, "Thank you for your help. Without you we..." "Shut up." However, to their surprise, Suyu said coldly, "If I hadn't deceived you, would you have returned to the God Realm Empire?" The 3 of them were petrified on the spot. Wait, what did he mean? Chapter 1488. Even Yongye Chushue and the others were stunned by his murderous words, not knowing what to do. Only the tree goddess executed Suyu's order without hesitation. It was almost an instinctive reaction. The Secular Sword deity and the others were bewildered. Did Suyu trick them into coming back in order to capture them alive? While he was thinking, the tree goddess had already made her move. Due to Suyu's genuine killing intent, they did not dare to resist, and were all captured alive. Lien Jie, who was already prepared for a fierce battle, was stunned by the sudden change. He said, "Su, brother Su, did you trick them into coming here?" Su Yu calmly glanced at him and said, "Brother? You're not worthy, please call me Alliance Master Su." His real identity was the leader of the Great Western Alliance. Lien Jie corrected himself. "Alliance Master Su, may I ask what you mean?" Su Yu said, "I knew you were setting up a trap to lure the secular sword deity, and I had some friendship with them before and gained their trust, so I took advantage of the situation and tricked them out of the world of divine remains. I came to the God Realm Empire and captured them alive." Hearing this, Lien Jie and the others looked at each other. It was rumored that Su Yu had a close relationship with these three, especially the Xing deity and the all-access merchant god. How could, regardless of the process, the result was exactly what they wanted? Lien Jie cupped his fist and said, "Thank you for your help, Alliance Leader Su. We will definitely report this to the Dakini. We will take these three with us." Unexpectedly, Su Yu flicked his sleeves and pushed the three of them away. Lien Jie was stunned. "Alliance Master Su, what do you mean?" Su Yu clasped his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "I was the one who brought her back, so how could I let you deal with her? Don't forget, I am the leader of the Great Western Alliance. My status is equal to that of the Dakini." Before the two alliances merged, the Dakini was the leader of the Eastern Alliance, while Su Yu was the Western Alliance master. "She's now the Empress because I wasn't around back then. Now that I'm back, I'm the Empress of the Holy Region Empire. Understand?" Hearing this, Lien Jie and the others were shocked. This was a plot to seize half of the God Realm Empire's authority? But in terms of logic, it was completely reasonable. They had the intention to cover up the matter and suppress it. However, after the commotion in the command center, countless onlookers had already gathered around. Moreover, Su Yu's domineering entrance had aroused countless people's curiosity. They had witnessed with their own eyes the return of the leader of the Great Western Alliance, the other half of the legitimate heir of the God Realm Empire. It would be too late to kill them all. Well, that's fine. We'll leave the three traitors to League Lord Su for now. We'll take our leave now. They quickly left to report what had happened to Mother Voidwalker. The leader of the Great Western Alliance returned in a high-profile manner, and as soon as he arrived, he caught three traitors of the Divine Realm Empire who had committed heinous crimes. For many years, the Dakini had been powerless. However, the arrival of Su Yu had solved the God Realm Empire's greatest threat. As expected of Su Yu, only he can turn the tide and create a miracle. My God! He was back. I have long heard that the Great Western Alliance was integrated into the Great Eastern Alliance after Su Yu took control. I didn't believe it at first, but now I know that he is really the Alliance Master of the Great Western Alliance. He's really the same as always. He's always stirring up trouble. Su Yu had returned as the Alliance Master of the Western Alliance, as well as the person who wielded half of the power in the Divine Realm Empire. In particular, he had caught the three main traitors of the Divine Realm Empire in the past and brought back countless other traitors. The news spread like an earthquake throughout the 200 cavern worlds of the Divine Realm Empire. The entire empire trembled violently and was instantly stirred up. Who is Su Yu? Everyone on the streets is talking about him. Have they all gone mad? An 18-year-old boy asked the uncle as he walked on the street. The uncle heard him and said, "That's because you were too young to know Su Yu's name. Back then, he was the legendary figure who dominated the Great Eastern Alliance, destroyed the world of divine remains, turned the demonic dimension upside down, and unified the Great Western Alliance. After disappearing for 8 years, I didn't expect him to return." The boy curled his lip. Why didn't the history books mention it? Also, the Great Western Alliance was unified by Our Lady Empress. What does it have to do with him? The uncle's face fell and he snorted. History is written by the victors. Now, humph, the real victors have returned. I think history will be completely rewritten. Crack. However, just as the uncle finished speaking, a cold light flew past, and his head flew up into the sky. Blood sprayed onto the boy's face, and he froze on the spot. In the sky, two figures flew past. They were dressed in yellow, with a cold long knife at their waist. Their faces were cold, and they killed countless people along the way. Anyone who slandered the Dakini would end up like that uncle. The group of passers-by was silent. The Imperial Guard of the Empress? Everyone was chilled. They were a powerful organization set up by the Empress in recent years, which radiated to the 200 cavern world. The Imperial Guard in yellow in the organization specialized in intelligence, arrest, interrogation, and assassination. Any news that was unfavorable to the Empress was dealt with by this team. The way they dealt with it was extremely bloody and cruel. Over the years, they had killed countless people. Those voices that opposed the Empress were nipped in the bud by the Imperial Guards. They were the nightmare of the residents of the Divine Realm Empire. They were everywhere like bloody demons. However, the Imperial Guard could kill all those who dared to speak ill of the Empress, but not the hearts of the people. Everyone knew that Suyu was back. He wanted to rule the world with the Empress. The gods of the Great Western Alliance secretly contacted each other and met with each other. Our Alliance Master Su is back. Great Shaman deity, glittering deity, you should be pleased to know this. Yes, the Alliance Master is finally back. We finally have our own leader. Although most of the gods of the Great Eastern Alliance had surrendered to the Dakini, there were still some who insisted on their original intentions and continued to meet. Suyu has returned and is fighting with the Empress for the world. Everyone, our dawn has come. Yes, the refinery deity died tragically, and the Shring deity, the all-access merchant god, and the secular sword deity were wronged. It's time for us to bounce back. However, we still need to observe. Suyu is the Alliance Master of the Great Western Alliance. Will he still care about the Great Eastern Alliance? He personally captured the 3 Shing deities and used them to take credit for the world. Will we be used as well? The Divine Realm Imperial Capital, the cavern world of the former Dakini. This place had become the most prosperous cavern world of the Empire. A boundless castle floated in the void, dazzling in gold and jade, like a pearl that reigned above the Empire. In the center of the castle was the magnificent palace. Inside the Imperial Palace, a gentle and quiet woman with a gentle temperament was quietly cultivating. Suddenly, she received a message. Looking at the content, the woman suddenly opened her eyes bursting with hatred. However, it was quickly restrained and restored to calmness, as if the trace of hatred just now did not belong to her gentle temperament. You really came back, the woman said. Moreover, you came back in such a high-profile manner, threatening to rule the world with me. What a drastic move. If Suyu had simply returned, how could it have caused such a reaction? However, as soon as he returned, he caught the traitor that the Empire had not been able to catch for several years, causing a sensation in the world. With the support of the will of all living beings, he could use the power of the world to demand imperial power. Her eyes flashed, and she said slowly, "Pass down the order, let Suyu come to see me." An audience was a respectful greeting from a subordinate to a superior. If Suyu really went to the appointment, he would have to admit that he was inferior. Yes, the personal guard said. The woman was undoubtedly the Dakini. She said lightly, "I will not let you destroy the good situation." The East Fleet Command Center had been taken over by the West Fleet. Even the entire cavern world was under Suyu's control. In the command center, the 3 Shing deities, who had calmed down, understood Suyu's intention. If Suyu really wanted to kill them, with his terrifying strength, he could have captured them in the world of divine remains. Why did he need to use the layout of this place? Sure enough, when the surrounding people were dismissed, Suyu gave the tree god a look, and she immediately released the seal. There is a reason. If I tell you in advance, I am worried that you will be discovered in advance, and it will not be easy to complete my high-profile debut plan, Suyu said. The Xing deity and the all-access merchant god just smiled bitterly, without any complaints. The secular sword god stared at Burui, who was also restricted here from beginning to end, and said coldly, "Alliance Master Su, may I ask if I can kill his mother?" "No." Suyu's answer was simple and powerful. The secular sword god asked, "Why?" "Because there is a reason for his betrayal," Suyu said. The secular sword god sneered, releasing his sword energy, and said, "Betrayal needs a reason? It's ridiculous." Suyu looked solemn and shook his head. "His reason is not ridiculous at all. Oh, why don't you tell me what a noble reason it is for him to betray us and kill the god of instrument forging?" Suyu said, "Is it noble to save your lives?" The secular sword god did not believe it and said, "You said he killed the god of instrument forging to save us? Isn't this a little too absurd?" Suyu sighed deeply. "It is not ridiculous, because it was the god of instrument forging who killed Burui." "What? How is that possible?" The secular sword god was surprised. "Alliance Master Su, what do you mean by this?" The all-access merchant god was also surprised. Suyu looked at the three of them and said, "The enemy is strong. Even if you scattered and fled, you may not be able to escape the pursuit. It was the god of instrument forging who sacrificed himself and exposed himself to distract some of the pursuers, so that you could escape. The enemy is not a fool. The god of instrument forging exposed himself, and the enemy did not know it was a trap. Only when an outsider exposed himself could the enemy believe it, and that outsider was obviously the treacherous son you mentioned, Burui." The secular sword god was stunned and said, "This is impossible." Suyu stared at him and said, "It is entirely possible. The three of you are far more important than the god of instrument forging. If Burui really wanted wealth, why didn't he reveal your whereabouts, but only the god of instrument forging?" The three of them were lost in thought. They had discussed this issue in the past, and the conclusion was that Burui still had a trace of conscience and did not harm their father. But at this moment, it seemed that there was another story. The secular sword god stared at Burui, still unconvinced, and said, "Then how do you explain that he cooperated with those people to kill his father?" Suyu said, "You have to ask your son if there is another story." The secular sword god's eyes were fierce, and he said angrily, "Evil creature! For the sake of Alliance Master Su, I will give you a chance to explain. Tell me, what is all this for?" Burui's calm face gradually condensed into surprise after Suyu told the truth. After staring at Suyu for a long time, he bowed to Suyu, and his eyes were full of gratitude. "The one who knows me best is not my biological father, but my former rival in love." Chapter 1489. Burui smiled bitterly. "That day, you were suddenly attacked and fled separately. The refiner god, who should have escaped, quietly came to the sword god's family and found me. He asked me to reveal his whereabouts." "Really?" The Xing deity was in disbelief. If the god of weapon refinement only wanted to distract the pursuers, he could have just shown himself. Why would he need to find you and let you expose his location? Burui chuckled. His smile was full of bitterness and helplessness. Distracting the pursuers is only one of the purposes. The other purpose is to hope that his death can make me a meritorious service, so that I can get a certain status in the Divine Realm Empire, and in the future, I can redress the grievances of him and you. Upon hearing those words, everyone was astonished. The god of refinement sacrificed himself to distract the pursuers and also to make a contribution. Such magnanimity was enough to move them and make them feel ashamed. At that time, they only cared about running for their lives. How could they have thought so much? Everything went as the refiner god expected. I made a great contribution and was promoted to the deputy captain of the East Fleet. Burui was forced to be a spy and a traitor. How many curses did he bear? One could imagine the torment in his heart. The secular sword god's face trembled and he said, "Then, you cooperated with them to lure us into the trap," so Burui's face was full of regret. He said deeply, "The refinement god can't die in vain. I can't expose myself. So, I have to cooperate with them and kill my father with my own hands." His words were cold and heartless, but the sorrow and pain in his words could be felt with his heart. The secular sword god was not angry. Instead, he put down the sword in his hand and looked up with a smile of relief and heartache. "I'm sorry, Rui. You have grown up." He walked over, patted him on the shoulder and said, "Everything you did was right. For the sake of the god of weapon refinement who was sacrificed, for the sake of those who died in vain, even if you really killed your father, your husband in the underworld will definitely be gratified." Burui shed tears again, tears full of sadness. The all-access merchant god and the Xing deity were speechless. They did not expect that the death of the refining god had such an inside story. Burui endured humiliation and stayed in the enemy's camp, only to redress the grievances. He had a good son. Looking at the reunion of the secular sword god and his son, both of them looked a little desolate. Burui was still alive, but what about Xing Yuanxin and Yang Tai? They were most likely dead. As if noticing their expressions, Burui said, "Seniors, I've been drinking and having fun these years, but I've been secretly investigating the Dakini's crimes. I've also inquired about Yuan Xin and Yang Tai. A few months ago, I got some information about them." And the Xing deity and the all-access merchant god were both shocked. "Are they dead or alive?" Burui smiled and said, "Of course he is still alive. For many years, they have been hiding in the Divine Realm Empire. Only recently did they reveal themselves and were chased by the Imperial Guard. Then, they once again went into hiding." Hearing this, the two of them were overjoyed. To them, this was a pleasant surprise. "It's a pity that I secretly inquired about them, but there was no news of them," Burui said regretfully. The Xing deity seemed to become 10 years younger again, her face brimming with joy. "At this moment, no news is good news. They must be hiding in a secret place." The all-access merchant god said, "That's enough. What you have done for Yang Tai and Xing Yuanxin, I will remember it." Burui cupped his fist and said, "I'm ashamed. In the end, I didn't help them much. However, in the past few years, I have collected a lot of information about the Dakini, especially the origins of the top 10 masters around her." Everyone's eyes lit up. It was the emergence of the top 10 masters that broke the balance of the Divine Realm Empire. Their origins were the most worthy of concern. Burui said, "As early as many years ago, the Dakini discovered that the Great Eastern Alliance relied on an ancient desolate ruin, which was full of powerful divinity, so it could stabilize in the galaxy. This was not a secret in the Great Eastern Alliance, but 100 years ago, the Dakini accidentally discovered that there was a hidden space in this ancient ruin. It contained a complete ruin which was full of rich resources. In just 100 years, she cultivated a total of 10 4th-level masters, a large number of 5th-level gods, and hundreds of 6th-level gods. She formed a powerful force." Burui said, "I have been secretly inquiring for many years, and finally found out where the space entrance is." Even Su Yu's eyes lit up. This was major news. "The entrance to the ruin is under the palace where the Dakini is currently guarding." Burui said, "There are endless resources inside. If we can seize it, we can cultivate our own strength and compete with the Dakini. This is our only way out." The Xing deity and the merchant god frowned. It would be very difficult to break into the palace where the Dakini was. They couldn't help but look at Su Yu and cast a questioning look at him. Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "It is not difficult to break into the ruin, but in this way, we will officially fall out with the Dakini. Before we expose the Dakini, we should not confront her directly." The Xing deity asked curiously, Then what do we do next? Announcing his return with great fanfare was the first step. What was the next step? Of course, it is to issue an edict to the world and establish my throne. She will be the female empress, and I will be the emperor, and we will share the world, Su Yu said. Only with the title could he subdue the will of the people in the world. At this moment, someone came outside the house. He was dressed in a yellow robe and was full of murderous intent. With an imperial edict in his hand, he forced his way in. From a distance, he shouted coldly, "The female empress's imperial edict has arrived. Su Yu, kneel down and listen to the edict." The majestic voice shook the surroundings and could be heard throughout the port. All the people were immersed in the high pressure of the Dakini all year round. Hearing this, they were all frightened and instinctively looked in the direction of the headquarters. The Xing deity and the others, who were in the middle of a discussion, changed their expressions slightly. Why did the Dakini react so quickly? Yongye Chushua raised her eyebrows. However, the tone of the imperial edict seems to be harboring some ulterior motives. Imperial edicts were only issued by the emperor to his subjects, especially when it came to kneeling down and listening to the edict. In other words, the Dakini did not recognize Su Yu's position. If Su Yu did not respond and accepted the imperial edict, it would be equivalent to admitting that he was inferior to the Dakini. She could sense the meaning of the edict, so could Su Yu. Before the imperial guard flew over, Su Yu took out a snow-white feather and waved it casually. A strong gust of wind was set off, which rolled up the approaching imperial guard and threw him away. The imperial guard was shocked and angry. "How dare you attack the messenger of the imperial edict? Kneel down and listen to the edict." Hearing the fierce words, Su Yu's eyes turned cold. He waved the white feather again, and an amazing power of ice appeared in the gust of wind. In just a moment, the imperial guard was frozen into an ice sculpture, and the celestial energy sphere in his abdomen was destroyed by the ice. His cultivation was destroyed in an instant. "You have been rude to me, so you will be punished with a small punishment." Su Yu waved his hand indifferently. "Get out of here. Leave the imperial edict." With a grasp, the imperial edict fell into Su Yu's palm. After reading it, he couldn't help but sneer. "The Dakini did respond and asked me to go to the palace to see her. Unfortunately, things are different now. I am no longer the young man in the cavern who was at your mercy." He clenched his fist, and the imperial edict was crushed into pieces. Then, Su Yu said calmly, "All the deities of the Great Western Alliance must come here in 3 days. Let's give the Dakini a surprise." Chapter 1490. The tree goddess said, "It is not appropriate for them to show up. Leave this matter to me." Su Yu nodded. "Emperor Yu, where should I go?" Burui said. "If you need me to continue to work undercover, I will do my best." Su Yu shook his head. "You have done enough. There is no need to take any more risk. Stay and enjoy the happiness of a family with your father." Burui was grateful, and the past hatred was forgotten. Seeing that the father and son were reunited, Su Yu said, "Go and rest. There may be some things for you to do in 3 days." The Xing deity and the others were all confident. Su Yu's return seemed to have brought them hope. Everyone retreated, except for one person who remained silent and stayed at the back. "Wanqing, I'll leave it to you." Su Yu looked at her, his eyes full of expectation and excitement. They were back, standing on the land of the Great Eastern Alliance, and standing at the closest distance to Xiaojingyu. Bai Wanqing nodded gently and took out the starry sky book. Her eyes burst with purple brilliance, bright and dazzling, illuminating the invisible fate hidden in the invisible. After a while, the purple light in Bai Wanqing's eyes became more and more brilliant, and her indifferent face gradually became confused. A sense of foreboding emerged in Su Yu's heart. It was not until her forehead was sweating and her face gradually turned pale that the purple light in her eyes faded. A pair of snow-white eyes were full of surprise and confusion. Did something happen? Su Yu asked. Bai Wanqing shook her head. It's not a change, but there is an invisible powerful force interfering with the Great Eastern Alliance. I tried to probe several times, but I was interrupted by this force. A powerful interference that covered the entire Divine Realm Empire? Su Yu was extremely disappointed. He felt like he had fallen from heaven to hell. Where does this power come from? At worst, he would destroy it. No matter what, anything that hindered him from finding Jingyu would be swept away. Bai Wanqing said, the center of this power is the palace of the Divine Realm Empire. I think it should be the so-called ruins, right? To be able to produce so many fourth heaven powerhouses and release such majestic power, it was completely reasonable. There. Su Yu pondered for a long time. It seems that it is necessary to go to the ruins. Within 3 days, the gods who once belonged to the Great Western Alliance received a notice from the Tree Goddess. In the past, the Tree Goddess had been Alliance Master Su's confidant. They all knew each other, so they naturally believed that this was Su Yu's summon. They had been suppressed by Mother Dakini for many years. Now that Alliance leader Su had returned, there was no reason for them not to accept the summons. In an instant, the 100 gods of the God Domain Empire left the cave abode. The unusual movements of the gods caused frequent changes in the heaven and earth. Even the spiritual chi within the Divine Realms Empire started to move. Of course, these changes could not be hidden from the Imperial Guards, who were scattered all over the world, nor could they be hidden from Mother Dakini, nor could they be hidden from all living beings. Have you heard? Mountain God Li has left the cavern world, and his whereabouts are unknown. Not only Mountain God Li, I heard that the 3 gods who were on good terms with him have all left. How come I heard that the Rain God, the Thunder God, and the other gods also left? No way. Apart from the summons of the female empress, how could so many deities leave the cavern world so easily? Ha ha, a bunch of ignorant people. It's Su Yu. Alliance Master Su is summoning them. Those deities who have left are all former members of the Great Western Alliance. Now that Alliance Master Su has returned, how dare they not obey the edict? But, without the consent of Mother Dakini, so many deities obey the edict, isn't it? Isn't it what? Isn't it about Alliance Master Su fighting for the imperial power? Since he returned in such a high-profile manner, this matter would happen sooner or later. Isn't it strange? It's just that the speed of his movements is beyond imagination. In the past, in the cavern world of the All-Access Merchant God, at the port, at the command center of the Eastern Fleet, Su Yu sat alone in the main seat, and on both sides, there were hundreds of deities. All of them were former deities of the Great Western Alliance. The scene in front of him was just like a king and his subjects. 7 years have passed, and you are still alive. Su Yu looked around at everyone's faces. Most of them were very unfamiliar, and he had only met them once. Looking at them, Su Yu said slowly. Hearing this, they, who had been suppressed for many years, couldn't help but feel sad. We are indeed alive, but Shiman deity and Linlang deity didn't wait for your return. These words expressed their grievances and resentment for many years. A deity said angrily, Alliance Master Su, you must seek justice for them. They died unjustly. Yes, Alliance Master Su, they came to the Great Eastern Alliance under your instruction, and that's why they were killed. You can't just sit back and do nothing. Bang! Next to Su Yu, the tree goddess stood up and said angrily, Bastard, do you mean you are blaming Su Yu for their deaths? She was Su Yu's trusted follower. As soon as she spoke, the person who had spoken was immediately stunned and didn't dare to say more. Su Yu waved his hand to calm the tree goddess down. Then, he looked around and said, Shiman deity and Linlang deity, although I didn't kill them, they were killed because of me. I understand without you reminding me. If he hadn't suppressed the Great Western Alliance and allied with the Great Eastern Alliance, would they have been killed by Mother Dakini? He was responsible for this. But they won't die unjustly. Now that I have returned, I will seek justice for them. Whoever killed them will pay the price in blood. Suyu said, "Let me ask you, how did those demons appear all these years? Do you have any idea?" Everyone looked at each other helplessly and bitterly. Alliance Master, although we have investigated for many years, we have no clue. Yes, the appearance of those demons was so sudden that it was incredible. We don't know how they sneaked into the secret room. At that time, under the witness of more than 200 deities of the two alliances, how did the demons get in? It doesn't make sense. 200 deities were proficient in all kinds of divine paths in the world. Those demons might be able to hide from the eyes and ears of one deity, but how could they hide from 200 deities? This matter has always been a thorn in the throat of the deities of the Great Western Alliance, and it has always been an unsolved case that we can't understand. Suyu's eyes flashed slightly. "Tell me the details." Everyone then told Suyu everything that had happened that day, not leaving out a single detail, After listening, Suyu was a little surprised. At first, he only thought that Dakini hid the demons in the negotiation place, but now it seemed that it was not the case at all. The negotiation place was personally inspected by both sides, and there was no possibility of hiding the demons. Moreover, both sides were forbidden to bring space caves into the negotiation place, so it was impossible for the demons to have brought them in. However, how did they appear in the meeting place out of thin air? That was simply unimaginable. Those demons were killed by Dakini one by one, and no one was left alive, they said angrily. Our Thunder God managed to capture one of them, but Mother Voidwalker didn't care. She helped Thunder God kill the demon. If it weren't for Thunder God's speed, he would have been killed as well. Even a fool would understand that Dakini was killing the demons to keep them quiet. Therefore, the deities of the Great Western Alliance felt that there must be something fishy about this matter. After listening to them, Suyu said in a low voice, "You don't have to worry about this matter anymore, and I will give the two deities an explanation." He stared at the deities again and said, "Do you know why I summoned you here today?" The deities were excited and said, "That's why we are here." Dakini stole half of the imperial power of the Great Western Alliance. Now that Alliance Master Su has returned, it's time to return it. The deities looked at each other and nodded. Then, they bowed to Su Yu and said in unison, "Welcome back, Emperor Yu." Hundreds of deities shouted at the same time, and their voices shook the world. With the port as the center, the words, "Welcome back, Emperor Yu," spread to all the cavern worlds in all directions, awakening the people in the world. Some creatures in the cavern worlds had inexplicable solemnity on their faces. Finally, it's coming. 2 tigers cannot live on the same mountain, and 2 emperors cannot coexist. They will fight eventually. Emperor Yu will be enthroned, and the world will be in chaos. Some creatures with foresight seem to have seen an unprecedented disaster, which was about to fall on the land of the God Realm Empire, and they were panicking. However, they didn't expect that the war would come earlier than they expected. Suddenly, an inexplicably powerful divine power appeared over the port and shrouded everything in the air. The deities of the Great Western Alliance who were shouting slogans all felt their hearts beating rapidly, and they subconsciously had the urge to worship. At the same time, a gentle voice like that of Mother Earth slowly floated down. "Who dares to claim the title of Emperor without my permission?" Crash! The restrictive spell over the command center shattered with a rumble, and the Dakini descended slowly, surrounded by a group of level 4 deities, like the Mother Earth, surrounded by a group of level 4 deities. She was magnificent, and her divine power was matchless, just like a female emperor. The deities of the Great Western Alliance, who had been immersed in her majesty for a long time, changed their expressions again and again. They didn't even dare to breathe, let alone look directly at her. At this time, another magnificent divine power swept over, covering their heads, blocking the pressure from the Dakini. The deities looked over with gratitude. It was Suyu. He was still calm and composed, sitting steadily in the main seat, not affected by the momentum of the Dakini at all. Looking at him, he seemed to be an emperor on the same level as the Dakini. Unable to suppress Suyu with her momentum, the Dakini said calmly, "Suyu, why are you behaving badly when you see me?" Suyu ignored her, but stared at the many deities around him, and a terrible divine power suddenly erupted, crushing them forcibly. In addition to Suyu's own powerful divine power, the divine power was also enhanced by the 6,000 divine paths. Even the level 3 deities might not be able to withstand it, let alone the level 4 deities. Lien Jie and the others were suddenly suppressed, and their faces changed dramatically, and they could not help but kneel on the ground. The entourage of the Dakini was kneeling to another person, and the meaning was self-evident. "How dare you behaving badly when you see me?" Suyu said calmly, and his divine power was even stronger. The Dakini waved her sleeves, dispelling part of the divine power, and tried to help them up. However, Suyu's divine power was so powerful that they could not stop kneeling. In such a comparison, it was obvious who was superior, as if Suyu was the greatest emperor. Suyu leaned against the main seat, his face calm and composed. "What brings the Dakini to see me, Dakini?" Chapter 1491. In terms of momentum, Dakini was no match for Suyu. At this moment, even if she wanted to say that she was the only empress, it was not convincing at all. However, Dakini's face did not change at all. She said calmly, "I heard that you summoned my subjects for no reason, so I came to ask." Before she could finish, Suyu interrupted her. "Let me correct you. They are my subjects. When I return, they will all return to me. They are no longer your subjects, understand?" Dakini looked at Suyu calmly. It was impossible to guess what she was thinking at this moment. "I understand. I can understand that you summoned your former subordinates. However, the God Realm Empire is the only organization that can resist the realm of demons. Aren't you afraid that the realm of demons will succeed in seizing power?" Dakini tried to pressure Suyu with righteousness. Suyu would not fall for it. He said calmly, "Then you can abdicate and transfer the power of the Great Eastern Alliance to me. With my many tricks and achievements in the past, I believe that I am more suitable to lead the God Realm Empire than you, Dakini, who has done nothing but enjoy the fruits of others' labor." He pointed out the crux of the matter, which made Dakini silent again. Yes, in terms of military achievements, Suyu had destroyed the world of divine remains, turned the realm of demons upside down, and unified the Great Western Alliance. On the other hand, what had Mother Dakini ever done? Apart from being the first deity of the Great Eastern Alliance, had she made any great contributions? No. Their eyes met in the air. One was confident and the other was calm and silent. Dakini's original intention was to suppress Suyu with the power of a ruler and wipe out the power he had built up. However, she never expected that Suyu would not retreat. Instead, he burst out with a momentum that was stronger than hers and suppressed her. In a head-on collision, she could do nothing to Suyu. After a long silence, Dakini said, "If that's the case, congratulations on coming back alive from the Heavenly Lake. The God Realm Empire is formed by the two great alliances. You have half of the power. I will allow you to be the Empress." "Sorry. I don't need your permission." Suyu didn't give her the slightest chance to gain the upper hand. He said, "As for you, withdraw all your Imperial Guards from the 100 cavern worlds that belong to me. You only have 3 days. If they still stay, don't blame me for committing treason and killing them without mercy." The Imperial Guards were a thorn in the hearts of the deities of the Great Western Alliance. If he did not get rid of them, he would not be able to follow Suyu with peace of mind. Dakini stared at Suyu for a long time, then said, "Fine. Since you're back, I'll naturally hand over their cavern world to you, and I won't ask about it any more." Many deities secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They had thought that Alliance Master Su wouldn't be able to withstand the Dakini's fierce attack. Unexpectedly, the Dakini had forced the Dakini to acknowledge Su Yu's position as Emperor Yu. From now on, they were free from the clutches of the Dakini. The gods felt as if a huge mountain had been lifted off their shoulders, and their bodies were indescribably relaxed. But at that moment Mother Dakini said, "Congratulations on your ascension to the throne. I'm here today to give you a congratulatory gift." She took out a well-wrapped wooden box from her space ring and passed it to Suyu. The tree goddess took it. As soon as she touched it, she frowned and said, "Death Chi? Could it be that there is a dead person inside?" Mother Dakini smiled. "Why don't you open it and see for yourself?" "Pa." The tree goddess opened it, and her pupils shrank slightly. Then, she presented it to Suyu with a sullen face. As soon as Suyu saw it, he was filled with killing intent. There was nothing in the wooden box except a head. It was the head of Wang Yunxian. The weapon-refining deity colluded with the demons and was killed. This is his son, Wang Yunxian. I was kind and merciful, so I spared his life and asked him to refine a weapon to fight against the demons. However, he didn't repent. Yesterday, he even contacted the demons secretly. Since he is so stubborn, I had to kill him. This head is a gift to Emperor Yu, which means we should work together to kill the demons. What do you think? Do you like it? The entire area fell into a dead silence. What a vicious woman! She killed Wang Yunxian to provoke Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes were filled with killing intent. Then, he took the head and said calmly, "Of course I like it." This was not a lie, but a sincere statement. Wang Yunxian had been enslaved, so it would take some effort to save him. Since Mother Dakini had sent the head to Suyu could just resurrect Wang Yunxian, which saved him a lot of trouble. Staring at the killing intent in Suyu's eyes, Mother Dakini felt the thrill of revenge. However, she was not satisfied. She said slowly, "I heard that Emperor Yu has captured several other traitors who colluded with the demons. Why haven't you executed them yet? After all, they colluded with the demons and caused the death of countless soldiers of the God Realm Empire. Aren't you afraid of being criticized by the world if you keep them alive?" She not only killed Wang Yunxian, but also forced Su Yu to kill the Xing deity and the others. From this, one could see how vicious his heart was. Su Yu said, "You are right, Mother Dakini. Bring them here." Soon, the Xing deity, the all-access merchant god, and the secular sword deity were brought here. Mother Dakini stared at them and said, "Why don't you put shackles on them?" Su Yu smiled mysteriously. "It's because they have already atoned for their crimes with their merits, and they have used their actions to wash away their past crimes." Mother Dakini said calmly, "Emperor Yu, you must be joking. How many innocent soldiers have they killed? What kind of meritorious service can be used to atone for their crimes and clear their names?" What they had done had angered the people of the God Realm Empire. It was not something that could be explained by a great contribution. Suyu laughed and said, "Everyone, tell me, what kind of great contribution have you made?" The all-access merchant god took a step forward and said, "Emperor Yu, we have killed an important member of the demon realm. I believe this can prove our innocence. It is absolutely impossible for us to collude with the demon realm." Mother Voidwalker glanced at the cultivation bases of the 3 Voidwalkers and smiled. With their strength, what kind of demon could they kill? At most, a level 4 demon god? But could a mere level 4 demon god prove that it was impossible for them to collude with the demon realm? A cold smile flashed across her eyes. Today, no matter what, she had to force Su Yu to kill her old friends of the Great Eastern Alliance. She wanted to show those gods of the Great Eastern Alliance that even if Su Yu came back, he couldn't save them. Those who opposed her must die. Su Yu said, "Tell Mother Dakini, who did you kill?" The all-access merchant god stared at Mother Dakini and said, "Mother Dakini, the person we killed is the first demon god of the demon realm, the demon god of 6 paths." There was a sudden silence. Who was the demon god of six paths? There was probably no one in the entire galaxy who did not know about it. The most terrible demon god in the legends. His strength was second only to the demon emperor, and he was an invincible existence in the Xing River. His status in the demon realm was unparalleled, and he could be called the representative of the demon realm. In the galaxy, his name alone was enough to suppress all the gods. Hearing that the all-access merchant god had killed the demon god of six paths, they were all stunned. They wondered if the demon god of six paths mentioned by the all-access merchant god was someone with the same name. Mother Dakini's pupils constricted inadvertently, but quickly returned to normal. There was a deep sarcasm in her eyes. They killed the demon god of six paths? It was the biggest joke in the world. Mother Dakini sipped her tea calmly and said with a faint smile, "Oh? Then I have to congratulate you. The demon god of six paths is the first demon god of the demon realm. If you can kill him, it will be a great blessing for the god realm empire." Everyone could hear the sarcasm in her words. The all-access merchant god's hand trembled. No one knew whether he was nervous or excited. He took out a wooden box from his space ring, which was also wrapped very delicately. The all-access merchant god opened it gently and presented it to Mother Dakini. The moment the wooden box was opened, a horrible demonic energy swept out. The gods of the Great Western Alliance were all shocked, and they involuntarily operated their divine powers to protect themselves. Some timid gods even pulled up their legs and subconsciously tried to escape. If Su Yu and Mother Dakini, the two emperors, were not present, they would have been scared out of their wits. They had never seen such a horrible demonic energy in their lives. This demonic energy is too pure. It is not inferior to the demon emperor in the records. Look at that head, it is the demonic god of six paths, it is him. I will never forget that portrait after seeing it once. Impossible. How could an invincible figure like the demonic god of six paths be killed? The hall was boiling, and they no longer cared about the presence of the two emperors. It wasn't until a cold, murderous intent swept over that they stopped abruptly and looked at the source of the murderous intent. The half-smile on Mother Dakini's face had disappeared, and it was replaced by stiffness, shock, disbelief, and extreme anger and murderous intent. It was as if the person lying in the box was her dearest relative. When Su Yu saw this, a cold sneer appeared at the corners of his mouth, but he still wore a smile on his face. "Dakini, how is it? Are you pleasantly surprised? My people killed the demonic god of six paths, the greatest threat to the god realm empire?" Mother Dakini stared at the head in the wooden box as if she was possessed. Hearing Su Yu's words, she suddenly raised her head. The soft, motherly eyes had been replaced by an unprecedentedly fierce and twisted murderous intent. At first glance, she was the complete opposite of Mother Dakini. Su Yu said leisurely, "What? My people killed the demonic god of six paths. Why is Mother Dakini not surprised? Instead, she regards us as her mortal enemy? Is it because my people killed the demonic god of six paths, which made Mother Dakini very unhappy?" As soon as these words came out, everyone came to their senses. Indeed, Mother Dakini's expression was too weird. The softness of her motherly aura had become so twisted and fierce, which made her look like a completely different person. Just that abnormal reaction alone was enough to raise suspicions. The death of the demonic god of six paths was a great fortune that had never happened before. However, Mother Dakini wasn't happy at all. Instead, she was filled with endless hatred. Even a blind man could figure out the meaning of her word. Mother Dakini also came back to herself. She calmed down immediately and said, "I'm sorry, I forgot myself. The demonic god of six paths was the greatest threat to the god realm empire. He had killed countless deities. When I saw him, I showed my murderous intent subconsciously." His murderous intent was obviously directed at Su Yu. Chapter 1492. Dakini's body trembled slightly. Then, she said calmly, of course it's a surprise. It's worth celebrating. So, are the all-access merchant god and the others cleared of suspicion? Suyu asked. Even the demonic god of six paths had been killed. Anyone who believed they were from the demonic dimension would be a moron. Dakini's lips trembled as if she was trying hard to suppress her emotions. Then, she said in a trembling voice, of course, they might have been wronged. I will investigate the case again. Then, Dakini stood up and said, I will go back to investigate the case immediately. I will never let the real murderer get away with it. Goodbye. As soon as she took a step forward, Suyu said, Dakini, it's rare for you to come here and give me such a precious gift. How can I let you go back empty-handed? He took the wooden box and stuffed it into Dakini's arms. With a faint smile, he said, Courtesy demands reciprocity. I hope you won't refuse this surprise. Dakini stared at Suyu. On the other side of her calm eyes, endless resentment and hatred were surging. However, her face was calm as she said, Thank you very much. Dakini took the wooden box expressionlessly. Then, surrounded by many deities, she flew up into the sky and left. Suyu's eyes were sharp. He clearly saw that her hands, which were holding the wooden box, were trembling. It seems my guess was right. The demonic god of six paths had a mistress in the Great Eastern Alliance. I used to think it was the Rakshasa deity. Now it seems it is the Dakini. Suyu sneered. When the Rakshasa deity was captured by the demons for 10 years, it was the Dakini who rescued her. Later, the Rakshasa deity gave birth to a son, who was half human and half demon. Everyone thought it was the son of the Rakshasa deity and the demonic dimension, but no one suspected the Dakini. She was the real mother of the Central Prefecture's king, a deity of the human race who gave birth to a child with the demonic god of six paths. For many years, the Rakshasa deity had been helping her cover up, making people mistakenly think that the child was hers. Later, the child disappeared without a trace under the eyes of many mysterious people in the Great Eastern Alliance. Now that he thought about it, who else could hide the Central Prefecture's king in the Jojo Cavern world except the Dakini, the #1 deity? As for sending the demonic god of withered bones to rescue the Central Prefecture's king, only this woman of the demonic god of six paths could command the demonic god of withered bones. What was even more amazing was that the memories of the demonic god of withered bones' soul had been forcibly erased by someone. At that time, Suyu and Xing Yuanxin speculated that only the strong men of the deity-level path of soul could achieve this, and there was no deity of the deity-level path of soul in the Great Eastern Alliance. Now everything made sense. The Voidwalker might not be a divinity, but among the experts she had secretly trained over the years, most of them were gods proficient in Soul Tao. Haha, what a benevolent Dakini! She showed her love to traitors such as the Book deity, the Rakshasa deity, and the Glaze deity, but to me, the all-access merchant god, and the Xing deity, she was extremely cruel. Suyu couldn't help but sneer. As he had said before, there were only two kinds of people like the Dakini, who showed mercy to their enemies. One was a saint who was benevolent towards everything in the world, including his enemies. The other was someone with ulterior motives. Now, it seemed that she was undoubtedly the second kind. After leaving the port in the depths of the endless sky, the Dakini held the wooden box with the skull of the demonic god of six paths in her hands. Her whole body was trembling uncontrollably, and the hatred hidden deep in her eyes turned into endless torrents. Leave! Lien Jie shouted. Then, he also left to give the Dakini some space. At this time, the Dakini not only had hatred in her eyes, but her facial features were also twisted by anger, sadness, and killing intent. Her whole body was full of cold, killing intent. Together with her twisted and hideous face, she looked like a demon. She didn't look like the Holy Mother Earth anymore, but a dark woman that no one had ever seen before. Su! You! She gritted her teeth and couldn't help but tremble. She held the wooden box tightly in her arms, and tears of sadness and anger rolled down her cheeks. Why? Why did you go against me? Why did you kill my son and then my husband? She didn't think about why the Central Prefecture's king died. He tried to devour the creatures of Jiuzhou. Did Su Yu just wait for death? She didn't think about why the demonic god of Six Paths died. As a creature of the Star River, was it better for her to let the demonic god of Six Paths eat her? I want you to die. Good. Die. The Dakini roared fiercely, full of hatred. In the command center, the Xing deity, the all-access merchant god, and the secular sword deity knelt on the ground together. We will never forget Emperor Yu's great kindness. From now on, we swear to follow Emperor Yu. It turned out that Su Yu had expected that the Dakini wouldn't sit by and watch Su Yu ascend to the throne. Hence, Su Yu decided to beat them at their own game and took the opportunity to clear their names. Su Yu was surprised. When the three of them knelt on the ground, his celestial energy sphere seemed to grow a lot. He was relieved. Sure enough, this is the power of faith. They willingly surrendered to Su Yu, worshipped him, and had faith in him from the bottom of their souls. The power of faith turned into Su Yu's celestial energy sphere. It seems that my decision was right. To gain the faith of the people of the God Realm Empire, I must not arouse their disgust, Su Yu said to himself. At the same time, Su Yu waved his hand and helped them up. He said, "This is just the first step. The goal is to defeat the Dakini completely." Many of the deities of the Great Western Alliance saw the rise of Su Yu and were completely loyal to him. However, they weren't as sincere as the Xing deity and the others, so there was no power of faith. Emperor Yu, should we prepare to fight the Dakini? A deity of the Great Western Alliance was eager to try. Su Yu shook his head. Now is not the time. I am waiting for some people, some important news. But, Su Yu had a faint smile on his face. We should indeed prepare. I think it is difficult for a person who has lost his mind to make a sober decision. Her counterattack is about to begin. The deities of the Great Western Alliance dispersed and returned to their respective cavern worlds to begin the relocation of the cavern world. They gathered around the port from all directions. 2 days later, the map of the vast God Realm Empire was full of potholes, and hundreds of cavern worlds were missing. However, in front of them, another map of a similar size appeared. It was divided by the center of the former Great Eastern Alliance. Half of it was ruled by the deities of the former Great Eastern Alliance, mainly by the Dakini. The other half was ruled by the deities of the Great Western Alliance, mainly by Su Yu. The Great Western Alliance built a palace in 2 days. Su Yu entered the palace and added the title of Emperor Yu. In the palace, Su Yu took out the head of Wang Yunxian and started to use the resurrection skill. With the head as the foundation, Wang Yunxuan's body gradually recovered. Finally, the 2 souls that had disappeared in the world also returned. I will not surrender even if I die. As soon as Wang Yunxian was resurrected, he slapped his palm towards Su Yu. Su Yu caught the palm effortlessly and shouted softly, "Wake up quickly!" Wang Yunxian opened his eyes and quickly woke up. Looking at the strange scene, the strange environment, and the familiar people, he was stunned. When the familiar face became clear, Wang Yunxian rubbed his eyes. Can a dead person still dream? It is not a dream. I saved you, Su Yu said. Wang Yunxian was stunned. That evil woman didn't kill me? Well, I guess so. Anyway, I saved you. Su Yu didn't want to explain too much. Wang Yunxian said in surprise, "When did you come back? I heard from Xing Yuanxin that you fell into the heavenly lake. No one could come back alive from there." Su Yu smiled slightly. Impossible? Who are you talking to? Wang Yunxian was stunned a bit and said with a wry smile, "Well, there is nothing you can't do. Everyone said you are dead, but I don't believe it. Even the realm of demons didn't kill you. What about the heavenly lake?" Looking at Wang Yunxian, who was as calm as before, Su Yu said, "I am relieved to see you like this. He was most afraid that the death of the artifact forging deity would make Wang Yunxian depressed. As the saying goes, the greatest sorrow is the death of the artifact forging deity. Wang Yunxian said with tears in his eyes, "My father always taught me to train my heart to craft artifacts. Otherwise, I can't craft a satisfactory divine weapon. I didn't understand it and I didn't want to understand it. Until he died, I suddenly understood why he taught me. How can a person forge a divine weapon that has been tempered thousands of times without a heart that has been tempered by experience? I think if he knew me in the netherworld, he would never want me to lose my heart." Hearing this, Su Yu was stunned. Wang Yunxian, who was standing in front of him, seemed to have gone through a transformation. He was no longer as cynical as before. An aura of the artifact forging deity appeared vaguely. "It's good that you can accept it," Su Yu said. Wang Yunxian punched Su Yu's chest and said with a smile, "Don't worry. My only goal now is to promote the artifact forging deity. I will only focus on crafting artifact. I will never think about committing suicide. You can rest assured." "Crafting artifacts?" Su Yu touched his chin. "Brother Yunxian, if you want to focus on crafting artifacts, I can recommend you to a place. I just don't know if you can keep up with me." Hearing this, Wang Yunxian patted his chest and said, "What a joke! How many people in the entire Star River can compete with me in crafting artifact?" Su Yu said with a playful smile, "Not necessarily." After saying this, Su Yu led Wang Yunxian into the weapon cabin of the Sacred Sky warship. The weapon cabin was bustling with activity. All kinds of enormous and horrible weapons were being forged. In particular, there was a 10,000-foot tall horrifying puppet standing in the deepest part of the weapon cabin. It was emitting an aura that could make living creatures shudder. Wang Yunxian was dumbfounded. He had been crafting artifacts all his life, but he had never seen so many strange weapons. When he glanced at the last giant puppet, he suddenly realized something and gasped, "How could this be? The ultimate ancient weapon of civilization, Brahma?" Su Yu was surprised. Even Yongye Chushue and Yongye Chushue didn't know what this puppet was. These forging masters only knew the blueprints, but didn't know what they were. "How do you know it?" Su Yu said in surprise. Wang Yunxian was so excited that he couldn't speak coherently. "Do you remember the puppet of the prospective deity level that I crafted in the past?" "Of course I remember. That half-baked puppet helped me a little," Su Yu said. Wang Yunxian had no time to complain. He was trembling with excitement. Grabbing Su Yu's arm, he said, "I told you that I found a manual on crafting puppets in the ruins. The puppet of the prospective deity level was one of them. But this Brahma is also in that manual." Wang Yunxian ran over, touched the feet of the puppet, and exclaimed, "My goodness! I thought this kind of thing couldn't be reforged. I didn't expect it could. Wait, you mean you know how to craft this puppet?" Wang Yunxian said without turning his head, "Of course, more than that, I also know how to drive this puppet. The manual described it in great detail." "What?" Su Yu was surprised. In addition to crafting the Brahma, there was another problem that couldn't be solved. They couldn't find a suitable driver. According to the current blacksmiths, they only knew how to craft. It would take time to figure out how to drive it. Even the father and son hadn't figured it out yet. Hearing that, Su Yu said happily, "Haha, it seems I didn't bring Brother Yunxian to the wrong place." "You mean you want me to come here?" Wang Yunxuan's face was filled with ecstasy. "This is an ultimate civilization-level weapon. Do you really trust me?" Su Yu chuckled. "What's there to worry about? I'll be more assured if you come here." As he spoke, Su Yu gathered all the craftsmen who were responsible for crafting the Brahma puppet and introduced Wang Yunxian to them. With Su Yu's endorsement and the knowledge that Wang Yunxian was Su Yu's good brother, these arrogant craftsmen couldn't wait to curry favor with Wang Yunxian. Without Su Yu's special instruction, Wang Yunxian quickly immersed himself in crafting. With a smile, Su Yu returned to the outside world. It was good that Wang Yunxian was in the sacred sky worship. He was a dead man. If he was suddenly resurrected, it would be troublesome if he was seen by others. After helping Wang Yunxian settle down, Su Yu let out a sigh of relief. Wang Yunxian was one of his few friends. However, Su Yu could only save the lives of creatures who were not deities. 4 deities like the artifact forging deity, bringing the dead back to life was useless. At this moment, the tree goddess appeared in a flash. She said with a faint smile, "As you expected, the Dakini has taken action." Su Yu's eyes lit up slightly. Then, he said, "Oh? What is she going to do?" "She is playing the same trick again. She wants to hold a meeting with you. The reason is that Emperor Yu has ascended to the throne, and she wants to announce it to the world." Hearing that, Su Yu said with a smile, "I really can't refuse this reason." Although he had ascended to the throne, he had never announced it to the world. Moreover, it had been a one-sided affair from the beginning to the end. Now, the Dakini wanted to announce it to the world together with him, which meant Emperor Yu's position would be more secure. Su Yu said, "Have you prepared all the secret arrangements I have made in the past few days?" The tree goddess said as she blinked her pretty eyes, "Don't you know who I am? Of course, I will make all the arrangements according to your plan. However, you should be careful." Su Yu didn't take this lightly. He was not afraid of the Dakini in terms of combat strength. However, he didn't dare to underestimate the misfortune of the Shaman deity and the glittering deity. They were killed by a demon who suddenly appeared in the secret room, which was worth Su Yu's attention. "Don't worry. I am confident." The tree goddess nodded her head. Then, she took out the invitation card from the Dakini. 3 days later, the God Realm Empire would hold a meeting to welcome Emperor Yu's ascension. At that time, all the deities would be present to witness this historic moment. It was an unprecedented event in the history of the God Realm Empire. At the same time, a group of patrolling soldiers of the Realm of Demons were patrolling around the periphery of the Realm of Demons to see if there were any scouts from the Star River. At this time, 5 of them suddenly attacked and killed the rest of the patrolling soldiers. After a fierce battle, all the rest of the patrolling soldiers were killed. The 5 surviving demons took off their helmets, revealing Qianjun, Sha'er, and 3 prospective deities. Looking at the dead bodies on the ground, Qianjun said, "Luckily, we managed to bribe some officials in the Holy Magic Hall for many years. That's how we managed to leave the realm of demons." Sha'er let out a sigh of relief. Looking back at the enormous realm of demons, she said anxiously, "We have no way out now." Qianjun said resolutely, "Princess Yunxia has almost found us. If we don't leave now, we will be killed. Our only option is to seek refuge with the Demon King." Sha'er nodded her head. "I hope the information we brought back will be useful to him." Swish. Chapter 1493. 3 days later, the God Realm Empire was unprecedentedly grand. More than 200 deities gathered at the border of the 2 empires, accompanied by strong men from various cavern worlds. In the entire Divine Realm Empire, as long as one had status, they would all come to participate in this sudden meeting. It was comparable to the time when the Eastern and Western alliances formed an alliance. Su Yu's return and his coronation as the emperor were all within our expectations. However, it was unexpected that the Dakini would show weakness so quickly. Haha, you don't know this, but a few days ago, Emperor Yu summoned his old subordinates, and Dakini came and forcibly intervened. Oh? Is that so? What was the result? Haha, look at the situation now. What do you think the result was? Hiss. Emperor Yu's methods are superb. He dared to come back in such a high-profile manner, so he must have some confidence. Unfortunately, I don't think he can successfully conclude the contract. The people who were discussing tacitly closed their mouth. When the 2 alliances formed an alliance, the 2 leaders of the Western Alliance died tragically at the hands of the demons. Not only did the people of the Western Alliance take it to heart, but the strong men of the Eastern Alliance were also suspicious. Boom! All of a sudden, a powerful aura came from the eastern and western divine regions, colliding at the border of the two regions, forming an invisible enchantment that shrouded all directions. Under the divine aura, people couldn't help but worship. "Welcome, Mother Empress, welcome, Emperor Yu." Swish! Under the deity's welcome, the two emperors teleported and appeared at the border. Dakini sat in a phoenix carriage, driven by 4 powerful phoenixes that had never appeared in Xing River. Each phoenix had a cultivation of level 4, which was more powerful than most of the creatures present. The rainbow-colored feathers, the cold and arrogant temperament, and the powerful cultivation gave people a deep sense of shock. What was even more shocking was that these divine beasts were just Dakini's means of transportation. The grandeur of her entrance were quite shocking. On the other hand, Su Yu was dressed in a plain robe, standing alone with his hands behind his back. He had no subordinates and no beast carriage to ride, which made him look shabby, completely inconsistent with the temperament of an emperor. In comparison, Dakini looked more like an emperor. When the two emperors arrived, everyone quieted down and waited for them to speak. The Dakini's calm eyes examined Su Yu. Her gaze was calm, just like the Dakini's gentle and kind self. She moved her eyes away and looked down at the gods. She spoke in a gentle and sweet-sounding voice. "Today, Emperor Yu and Emperor Yu have made a contract. The two emperors will be in charge of the Celestial Realm Empire together. I hereby summon all the gods to bear witness." All the deities said, "Two emperors standing side by side is the fortune of our empire." Mother Dakini nodded slightly, and the maidservant behind her produced a large jade seal, which was incredibly beautiful. The seal was engraved with a qilin, and the words, "Divine Realm Empire," were engraved at the bottom. This seal was the imperial jade seal of the Divine Realm Empire. Any imperial edict would require the imperial seal. Controlling this seal was equivalent to controlling the Divine Realm Empire. "This is the imperial seal," Mother Voidwalker said. "It will be split into 2, with Emperor Feather and I each holding 1/2. Whenever there is a major decision to be made, the 2 of us will come together to discuss it. Then, the imperial seal will be placed in one place, and the imperial edict will be issued." The deities were secretly in awe. This was going to be a historical moment. Bang! Mother Dakini clenched her fist, and the jade seal split into 2 neat halves. Mother Dakini threw 1/2 of it to Su Yu. Su Yu caught it and checked it carefully to make sure there was no mistake. Mother Dakini said, "The imperial seal has been split. Next, you and I should discuss the specific matters. What matters can be decided by you and me, and what matters require the imperial seal to be put together." Su Yu said, "That's exactly what I want." Swish! Mother Dakini waved her sleeves and created a huge enchantment in the air. Inside the enchantment, not only could it isolate sound, but it could also isolate spies. At least, Su Yu's transparent eye couldn't see through the enchantment. "We should not be disturbed by outsiders when we are discussing. This is a secret room that I have specially created. It can exclude external interference, and we can discuss in peace." Mother Dakini made a gesture of invitation. The deities were shocked. Here it comes. In the past, the 2 leaders of the Great Western Alliance were also killed by the demons who appeared mysteriously in public. Today, Mother Dakini proposed a secret meeting again. Would the unimaginable scene of the past happen again? Su Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest, showing no intention of entering. "Are you worried?" Mother Dakini said calmly, "But the discussion can't be delayed." After a moment of silence, Mother Dakini withdrew the enchantment and said, "Since Emperor Yu doesn't trust me, Emperor Yu can choose the venue for the discussion. Any venue is fine." It sounded like Su Yu was a villain, while Mother Dakini was magnanimous. Many of the bystanders looked at the aura, clothes, and even temperament of the 2. Naturally, they had a better impression of Mother Dakini. She is the female empress after all. Her temperament is far superior to that of a young man. Indeed, the God Realm Empire used to be prosperous, but Su Yu's return caused the God Realm to be divided into two. Exactly. Why did he come back? He could have just died in the Tianhu. Mother Dakini quietly suppressed Su Yu's image, and it was quite effective. Su Yu was not moved. He said calmly, "In that case, I won't retreat. Thunder Emperor, you set up the enchantment." The Thunder Emperor of the Great Western Alliance stood out immediately. After a slight hesitation, he said quietly, "Emperor Yu, why don't you invite the people of the Great Eastern Alliance to attack together? This will show our generosity. Otherwise, Mother Dakini will take all the treasures." Su Yu said with a faint smile, "So what if she gets all the attention? Everything will end today anyway." The Thunder Emperor took the order and set up the enchantment with the Thunderbolt Divine Path. The effect was similar to before. Mother Dakini didn't even look at them as she floated into the room. "Wait. To ensure the safety of both parties, please hand over your space treasure before entering," Su Yu said. Mother Dakini paused for a moment, then took out her space treasure and handed it to the servant behind her. Everyone was filled with emotion. Look, what is a real emperor? Such generosity, such generosity. I heard that 3 days ago, Emperor Feather didn't give Mother Voidwalker any face. But now, Mother Voidwalker doesn't care about the past, and is completely unguarded against him. She really is worthy of being our Mother Earth's Mother Voidwalker. Haha, compared to him, Su Yu's attitude of gauging the stature of a gentleman with a lowly person is really disgusting. What right does such a person have to rule the God Realm Empire and become our emperor? The deities understood Su Yu's cautiousness, but they didn't know the inside story. They were all deceived by Mother Dakini's appearance and supported her. Unknowingly, Su Yu had left a terrible impression on the creatures of the God Realm Empire. Su Yu wasn't moved. He took off his space treasure and handed it over to the Thunder Emperor. He smiled at Mother Dakini and said, "It's done. Please come in." The two of them entered one after another and found themselves in an enchantment with interweaving thunderbolts. Mother Dakini entered first and checked the enchantment's effect without any expression on her face. Su Yu stood behind her with his arms crossed in front of his chest. He said calmly, "Don't worry. The outside world can't hear or see what's going on in here. You don't have to pretend anymore." Swish. Mother Dakini turned her head abruptly. Her calm face had been twisted and squeezed together. Her gentle face now looked like an enraged evil spirit. Even her voice had lost its calmness and was filled with hatred and resentment. "I hate you so much. Why did I let you go back then? You killed my son and my husband. You can't repay this debt of blood even if you die 10,000 times." Su Yu chuckled. "You've finally shown your true colors. I think since you've told me everything, you won't let me leave alive." Mother Dakini sneered. Her smile was sinister like a vicious snake. "You're very smart. I believe you've guessed that I'll definitely seek revenge on you. But unfortunately, you've guessed wrong. I won't play the same trick and let you find out the cause of Shimanjian's and Glittering Deity's deaths." Su Yu raised his eyebrows slightly. Mother Dakini's cold smile deepened, and her eyes were filled with cunning. "Unfortunately, my revenge against you isn't here, but somewhere else. I believe you'll find out soon enough." A sense of foreboding welled up in Su Yu's face. The dark and cunning side of Mother Dakini was unexpected. As she laughed, the ground beneath Mother Dakini's feet slowly melted. She was a deity born from the spirit of a giant mountain. She was born with a connection to the earth and could manipulate the earth with a single thought. Su Yu was alarmed. Could those demons have appeared in such a strange way? As the ground melted, a giant black cauldron emerged, emitting boundless demonic energy. Apparently, it was a demonic artifact. Moreover, it was an imitation demonic artifact of an extremely high grade. The bonfire under the giant cauldron burned fiercely, turning the black cauldron red. The interior of the cauldron was filled with a pitch-black liquid. Several people were tied up in it, all of whom Suyu was familiar with. Hirushu. Suyu was taken aback. In the boiling black liquid, Hirushu and several elders of the crane deity's family were tied up in the giant cauldron and were being cooked alive. Their faces were filled with extreme agony. Their bodies were boiling in the giant cauldron, and their skin and flesh were rotting. However, they were restrained and could not move. They had to endure the torture that made them wish they were dead. Hirushu saw Suyu and cried for help involuntarily. "Master, help me, help me!" The rest of the elders also saw Suyu. They all cried for help as if they were grasping at straws of life. It was a cruel and desolate scene. Even Suyu couldn't help but be moved. His heart was filled with killing intent. Dakini's smile became distorted. She said with a hideous smile, "Are you surprised? You sent experts to rescue them, but they are still here." Suyu said in a low voice, "How did you know I would send people to rescue them?" Mother Voidwalker laughed complacently and happily. "Then," she said, "does it hurt to see an old friend being boiled alive? However, this is just the beginning. I will pay you back 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times the pain you have inflicted on me." Demonic origin cauldron. Open! Dakini shouted. Then, the primordial fire under the giant cauldron rose abruptly. Hirushu and the others in the giant cauldron were melted by the boiling black liquid before they could even let out a scream. Seeing them being boiled to death, Suyu's face became gloomy. Killing people is just a small matter. Is it necessary to torture innocent people like this? Dakini clapped her hands and laughed crazily. Ha, ha, ha. That's the expression. Right, right. You are in pain. That's right. Chapter 1494. The show has just begun. Dakini immediately used the control method, and the flame of the demon origin cauldron faded and cooled down quickly. Then, the giant cauldron tilted and poured all the liquid into the ground. A group of people poured out at the same time. Their faces were hideous and their facial features were fierce. They were demons. However, what made Suyu's heart tremble was that the eyes of those demons seemed to be familiar. It was Hirushu and the others. They did not die, but were converted into demons. Suyu suddenly understood where the demons who killed Shimin Jian and the glittering deity came from. But now was not the time to pay attention to unsolved cases. Hirushu and the others had become demons, but their minds remained intact. When they found out that they had become demons, their eyes were full of horror, fear, and panic. They wanted to say something, but found that they had lost the language of the Star River, and could only use clumsy gestures. Hirushu looked at Suyu and cast a pleading look. He strode towards Suyu, knelt in front of him, and kept kowtowing for help. The rest of the elders did the same, kneeling in front of Suyu. Dakini sneered deeply, and the expression on her face disappeared. At the same time, she put away the demon origin cauldron. Then, she gritted her teeth and cut off half of her body. At the same time, she smashed the thunder enchantment with her palm. The gods who were whispering outside suddenly found that the thunder enchantment was broken. Astonished, everyone turned their gazes over. To their astonishment, Mother Dakini was severely injured. However, what shocked them even more was that there were demons inside. Moreover, a group of demons were kneeling in front of Suyu, as if he was their master. Dakini's face was pale, and she flew back to the phoenix carriage weakly. Trembling, she said, Emperor Yu is the spy sent by the demon world. It was him. He summoned the demon weapon, and when I was unprepared, he seriously injured me. Her injuries matched the scene of the demons kneeling in front of Suyu. Not to mention the gods present, even the gods of the Great Western Alliance who trusted Suyu were stunned. They wanted to defend Suyu, but in such a scene, how could they defend themselves? Dakini said weakly, I beg the gods to help us kill the demons first. Many gods of the Great Western Alliance hesitated on the spot. In the Great Eastern Alliance, some gods who served Dakini immediately took action. Walala, in the blink of an eye, 30 to 40 gods attacked at the same time, and with sharp killing intent, they killed the devils that appeared below. Hirushu and the others were anxious, they wanted to explain. However, in the eyes of the gods, this action was seen as preparation for an attack. The deities' expressions changed, and they shouted, "Hurry up and attack! These demons are going to hurt people!" Bang! How could the gods dare to be careless against the demons? He didn't dare to show any mercy and immediately used his ultimate technique. "Stop!" Suyu bellowed. His divine power surged forth and swept away the person who attacked him. The god who was swept away was bewildered and said in shock, "Emperor you are protecting the devil race?" This time, the gods of the Great Western Alliance could not help but feel nervous. Could it be that Suyu really, recalling that Suyu had come out of the demon dimension, it was possible that he had been bribed by the demon dimension? Suyu said in a low voice, "Listen to me, they are not demons, but demons who were transformed from Xing River creatures." The gods looked at each other in dismay. They were all skeptical about this. It was not uncommon for Xing River creatures to be transformed into demons by force. The most famous incident in the Great Western Alliance was that a proud daughter of the Glittering Jewel family joined the demon dimension and transformed into a demon. However, at this time, the Dakini struggled to support her weak body, and said with difficulty, "Yes, they were all members of the Crane deity's family who were transformed into demons. However, they were willing to follow Suyu's order. I was injured by them because of my carelessness." The gods were a little confused. What the Dakini said was not unreasonable. Everyone knew Suyu was the family master of the Crane deity's family in the Great Eastern Alliance. It was highly possible that the descendants of the Crane deity followed Suyu's order and betrayed the demon dimension. Wait, aren't the descendants of the Crane deity locked up? Why are they here? A deity asked in surprise. Just at this moment, several powerful auras flew over rapidly. They were the trusted subordinates of the Dakini, Lian Jie and the others. They rushed here with 3 people in custody. Lian Jie said in panic, "Bad news. The Crane deity's family has been rescued by someone." The Dakini was shocked. She coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood and asked, "Who rescued them?" Lian Jie pushed the 3 people from behind to her. It turned out to be the all-access merchant god, the Xing deity, and the secular sword deity. "It was you," the Dakini said. Lian Jie said, "I am incompetent. When I found out, the people of the Crane deity's family had been rescued. They were the ones who went to rescue them." The all-access merchant god cast an apologetic and self-blaming look at Suyu. Suyu had arranged for them to go to the prison to rescue people when the 2 emperors signed the alliance. However, the people of the Crane deity's family had been transferred away. What awaited them? There was a trap. The Dakini's face was filled with tenderness. She sighed slowly, "Alas! Was I too kind and modest? Why did Emperor Yu dare to collude with the demon dimension?" At this point, Suyu's suspicion was irrefutable. Even the gods of the Great Western Alliance looked at Suyu in a different way. The sigh of the Dakini ignited the anger of many creatures and most of the gods. "Suyu, you treacherous B*****. I thought I would rely on you one day. I didn't expect you to be so noble." Heh, heh, heh. What a joke. I guess the death of the Shiman deity and the Linlang deity was also controlled by you, right? You evil B*****. We can't let you live. Kill them. Let's kill them together. The Dakini said softly, "Everyone, please be merciful. After all, Suyu used to be a member of the Great Eastern Alliance. If he is willing to admit his mistake, why not let him go this time?" Her words not only failed to appease the anger of the people, but also added fuel to the fire. "Suyu, did you hear that? This is the leader of our God Realm Empire. Who do you think you are? How dare you compete with the female empress for the imperial power? Female Empress, we admire your kindness very much, but Suyu can't be let live. Let us be the bad guys. The Dakini reached out to stop them. You don't kill, however, because her injuries were affected. The Dakini coughed heavily and sat down weakly. At the moment when the head was on the ground, the pair of gentle eyes glanced at Suyu, full of sinister smiles like that of a poisonous snake. Her plan had succeeded. Not only did she destroy Suyu's foundation and take back the imperial power, but she also put Suyu in an irrecoverable situation. Now, even if he killed another demonic god of 6 paths, no one would believe him. Suyu became the target of public criticism, including the gods of the Great Western Alliance, who joined in the crusade. Just now, it was Emperor Yu, but now he was a stray dog, being hunted by the whole God Realm Empire. Even if Suyu had 100 mouths, he couldn't defend himself. Gritting his teeth, Suyu rolled up his sleeves and took Hirushu and the others away. At the same time, before the gods surrounded him, he rushed out and disappeared into the Xing River in a flash. The gods chased after him, but they soon lost him and returned angrily. The Dakini sighed. Ah, we are all creatures of the Great Eastern Alliance, why did we end up like this? I think it's my fault for not managing the God Realm Empire well. She raised her head and sincerely apologized. I'd better abdicate and let someone more capable be the ruler of the God Realm Empire, so as not to affect the great cause of fighting against the demons. Hearing this, the gods were terrified. Empress, please stay. Without your leadership, how can we fight against a wicked person like Suyu? Yes. In this world, only the Empress can lead us to a new world. Empress, we have been suspicious of you in the past. Now the truth has been revealed, please forgive us. From now on, we are willing to follow the Empress sincerely. Empress, please stay. Be it gods or living beings, all of them showed their utmost respect to Mother Dakini. Her popularity at this moment exceeded that of all previous generations, reaching the peak. The gods of the Great Western Alliance, who had never been convinced by her in the past, and some of the Great Eastern Alliance, all showed their allegiance to her at this moment. His power and influence had reached its peak. At this moment, the Dakini took a deep breath. Suyu's return not only did not cause her any loss, but also gave her complete control of the God Realm Empire. Her eyes were filled with excitement and fierceness. Standing up, the Dakini said, "Don't do this. Well, for your sake, I will continue to be the ruler of the God Realm Empire." Hearing this, the gods and the creatures shed tears of gratitude. The Dakini had become the biggest winner. No matter how powerful Suyu was, there was no way he could turn the tables. However, at this moment, a powerful and dangerous aura approached slowly from the depths of the Star River. The Star River was still silent, but the gods felt their hair stand on end as they stared at the depths of the Star River. The creatures on the ground felt as if their chests were being pressed by a mountain, and they could not breathe. It was as if a terrible world-destroying object was approaching. Even the Dakini's face changed slightly and gradually became serious. Rumble. Sounds that shook the entire God Realm Empire came one after another. It was as if a giant creature was rushing towards them from the depths of the Star River. Gradually, a snow-white disc-like object smashed the stars along the way and headed straight for the God Realm Empire. Its size was comparable to a small part of the God Realm Empire. Looking at the horrible behemoth, no one dared to breathe. They watched it approaching slowly without blinking, casting a huge shadow over the God Realm Empire. What is this thing? No one knew, because no one had ever seen it before. Heh, are all the creatures of the Star River gathered here? That's great. Our demon army doesn't have to hunt everywhere. A cold voice sounded from the disk. At the same time, an amazing demonic energy was emitted from the disk. It's the demon race. The gods' faces changed dramatically, and they were terrified. Swish, swish, swish. A beam of light was projected from the bottom of the disk, and the column of light was surging with an amazing demonic energy. Oh my God, it's the demonic energy of the royal family of the demon realm. The royal family of the demon realm has come in person. The gods were completely terrified. Together with the unknown disk, the panic spread wildly. 4 figures were standing in the billowing demonic energy of the royal family. One of them was a woman, but she was a human. She slowly walked out, revealing a beautiful but dignified face, like an empress of a generation. Chapter 1495. Others didn't know who Princess Yunxia was, but Dakini had no reason not to know. But why did she suddenly come without warning? Did the demons decide to encircle the Divine Realm Empire? But why didn't they tell her in advance? A trace of doubt came to her mind. Her crystal eyes flickered slightly, and Dakini shouted righteously, "Gods, get ready to fight! The demons are invading!" Clatter. The gods were so frightened that they didn't dare to hesitate and mobilized their divine power. The attack of the demons was sudden, and they were in a hurry. There was no time to take out the various preparations in the cavern world. Fortunately, the 10 fleets of the Divine Realm Empire were on standby. At this moment, they all rushed out and confronted the huge snow-white object. Princess Yunxia's face was dignified, and she said indifferently, "Mere ants, so what if there are more of them? Where is the holy magic hall?" Under her command, a large amount of demonic energy flew out from the snow-white disk. The rolling demonic energy was like a rolling ocean, and a red-eyed demon could be vaguely seen inside. Tyrannical, cruel, and bloodthirsty aura rolled out like a storm. Countless creatures from the divine realm trembled and couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts. Countless cavern worlds had already been captured by the devil race, and the fate of the creatures inside was extremely tragic. All of them were eaten alive. Just the thought of it caused the various gods to shudder. The gods of the Great Western Alliance were calm. They had been fighting with the demons for many years and had long been used to it. But the gods of the Great Eastern Alliance were panicking, and even their divine power couldn't flow smoothly. They trembled all over and completely lost the power to fight. Fleet attack. Dakini gave the order. The West Fleet took the lead, commanded by Emu, past the other fleets, and bravely launched an attack on the demons. With the example of the West Fleet, the gods calmed down a little. They had prepared for many years and even formed 10 fleet. What was there to be afraid of? However, just as they were about to rush out with the West Fleet, 100 huge cannons landed at the bottom of the snow-white disk. Each of them was the size of a cavern world. Hundreds of them gathered together, comparable to half of the Divine Realm Empire. One of the giant cannons was full of destructive power. Boom! A loud explosion that shook the heaven and earth. The terrifying pillar of light, like Mercury falling to the ground, exploded towards the Western Road Fleet. An unforgettable scene appeared. The powerful Western Road Fleet, which was regarded as a sharp weapon against the demon race, was instantly engulfed by the beam of light. Including the fleet, the 10 battleships, countless creatures, and even Emu, who was a level 4 powerhouse, were all wiped out. The air was filled with a scorching and destructive aura, causing one's heart to tremble. Everyone stared blankly at the West Route Fleet that had been vaporized. The West Fleet is gone just like that? One cannon can destroy a fleet. That disk giant has 100 cannons. Their fighting spirit had just been ignited, but their boiling blood was extinguished by the cruel reality. There was no need for the devil race to act. Just this giant creature was enough to completely destroy them. Consort Yunxia's expression was indifferent. Ants will always be ants. Today, the army of the demonic world has arrived. There will be no way for you to survive. All of you die. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The 100 cannons beneath the circular magical artifact began to accumulate energy at the same time. One was already so terrifying, not to mention 100? The water of the Star River continued to flow backward, and the already silent starry sky was dead silent. The Hall of Light formed by the 200 cavern worlds, in front of the destructive power, flickered like a candle in the wind, about to be destroyed. Buzz, with a tremor, the energy of the hundreds of giant cannons was fully charged, and they aimed at the remaining 9 fleets, the 200 gods and the Dakini. The gods were desperate. In front of that kind of power, they had a feeling that they could not resist. They could only watch helplessly as the giant cannons destroyed them and shattered them into dust. The heavens want to destroy the divine realm empire. An old god looked up to the sky and sighed, tears falling down his face. Not only did the demonic world have power far stronger than the divine realm empire, but they also had such a destructive weapon. Despair and indignation appeared on the faces of the other gods as well. In the face of all this, Consort Yunxiao was indifferent. She ordered coldly, "Fire, kill them all, leave no one alive." Wait. At the moment when the giant cannons bombarded, a hurried voice sounded between the two sides. It was the Dakini, the leader of the Divine Realm Empire, the Empress who would lead them to the future. The Dakini left the gods of the Divine Realm Empire and flew in the direction of the demons alone. This scene shook the minds of the gods. What is the Dakini going to do? Is she negotiating with the demons? Or does she have a plan to stop the demons? He can't be thinking of shaking the demon race by himself, right? In their minds, the Dakini had become their spiritual leader. Every move she made could attract the attention of the god. Especially after Su Yu's betrayal, their respect for the Dakini had reached an unprecedented peak. The Dakini did not negotiate, nor did she use any tricks, nor did she fight the demons head-on. Instead, she stepped forward and bowed. "Your subordinate pays respect to the Empress." Her voice, in the silent Star River, echoed over and over again. "Your subordinate pays respect to your Majesty." Many people did not believe their ears, but the endless echoes told them that they did not hear it wrong. The Dakini actually paid respect to the Empress of the demonic world. She had just become a bright guide in the eyes of all people and had just been recognized by everyone. Now, she actually paid respect to the Empress of the demonic world? How is this possible? The gods were at a loss. They felt that the whole world had been turned upside down. How could such an absurd thing be true? Did she pay respect to the Empress of the demonic world because she saw a dead end? However, the next sentence of Princess Yunxia shattered everyone's hope. "You have worked hard for so many years." The Dakini bowed her head and said, "For the great cause of unifying the demonic world, no matter how hard it is worth it." Boom. It was as if countless thunderbolts had smashed the reason that they had accumulated over the years. What's more, the holy image of Mother Dakini in their hearts was completely shattered. Many years ago, she surrendered to the demonic world. She had been a member of the demonic world for a long time. Princess Yunxia said, "I am very sorry about the death of the demonic god of 6 paths and the Central Prefecture's king, but the demonic world will not treat you badly." The Dakini clenched her fists and said, "I will ask Su Yu for the death of my husband and children." What? The people who were shocked were once again struck by a devastating blow. The Dakini actually had an affair with the demonic god of 6 paths and gave birth to a bastard. Wait, they all died in the hands of Su Yu. Doesn't this mean Su Yu did not surrender to the demonic world at all? We wronged the wrong person," a god said in disbelief as his lips trembled slightly. The rest of the gods also realized what had happened. They were full of regret and self-mockery. "We deserve to die. Our death is not enough to be regretted." Obviously, there was a heroic leader who killed the demonic god of 6 paths. Obviously, we still had the power to fight against him. In the end, what did we do? We didn't do anything. We were just bewitched by a few words. Then, we hunted him down and drove him out of the Divine Realm Empire. Now we reap what we sow. What a great irony! Some gods of the Great Western Alliance were the most ashamed. They said with a wry smile, "I don't care if I die, but we died because of our stupidity." Think about it carefully. Where was Su Yu when the Shaman deity and the glittering deity were killed by the demonic world? At the bottom of the Heaven Lake? How could he control this place from hundreds of trillions of miles away? It's ridiculous that we were so stupid. We believed the words of the Dakini and regarded him as a traitor of the demonic world. The gods came to their senses one after another. At this moment they found the scene just now was really suspicious. However, they were muddle-headed and didn't think about it rationally. As expected, the seemingly serious injuries on the Dakini's body healed quickly. She didn't look like she was seriously injured at all. Thinking of her pretentious behavior before, she asked to resign on her own. Wasn't that a trick of loosening the reins only to grasp them better? It was ridiculous that so many gods were fooled by the appearance of the Dakini in the past and didn't suspect her at all. At this time, Princess Yunxia said indifferently, "Dakini, I'm going to kill them. Do you need anyone to plead for me? Out of respect for you, this empress can let him go." Hearing this, some gods who were on good terms with the Dakini were filled with hope. They stared at her without blinking and tried to attract her attention. This might be the only way for them to survive. However, Mother Dakini only looked at them for a moment, then smiled coldly and said, "You're just a bunch of idiots that I've toyed with. I'm not going to plead on their behalf. Kill them all." As soon as she said this, the last hope in the hearts of the gods was extinguished. "Dakini, you are such a shameless woman. You dog of the demonic world. You've been pretending in my divine realm empire for so many years. I thought you were really kind. It turns out that you're a two-faced bitch. I really hate myself for helping a thing like you. All these years I've really been blind." Angry curses filled the galaxy. The Dakini just laughed, and her laughter was wild and ferocious. "Curse all you want. You're all going to die anyway." Her eyes were sharp, and her face was twisted with endless sarcasm. "You will never understand the horror of the demonic world. Being with you will only lead to death. The only way to survive is to follow the demonic world." The gods cursed even more fiercely, and all of them were filled with rage. "Humph! Do you think I care about the insults of a bunch of idiots? Originally, when Su Yu came back, you might have been saved. Unfortunately, you were stupid enough to drive him away. Then, don't blame others." Princess Yunxia frowned slightly and said indifferently, "Why are you talking to them?" Staring at the Dakini, Princess Yunxia said, "I will give you the opportunity to kill them. It is also a test of your loyalty. Do you dare to accept it?" The Dakini said without hesitation, "I am loyal to the demon race, and I will not hesitate to kill them with my own hands." "Well, give the order to fire the cannon, and I will leave it to you. Don't let me down." The Dakini laughed. "It's just killing a bunch of useless idiots. What's there to be disappointed about?" She stared at the gods and revealed a sinister and cold smile. "Say goodbye to this world. Fire." Chapter 1496. The gods also closed their eyes slowly, waiting for death. However, the death that they imagined did not come. The 100-world devastation cannons did not move at all. Dakini was startled. She repeated, "Fire." However, the world devastation cannons were still motionless. No, to be precise, the energy in it actually retreated and gradually shrank. Dakini was puzzled. "Queen, this is..." In her puzzled eyes, Princess Yunxia showed a pitiful smile. Then, a scene that made Dakini's face change dramatically appeared. The figure of Princess Yunxia gradually became transparent and disappeared. At the same time, the 3 demonic shadows of the royal family around her also disappeared. The hundreds of demonic shadows of the Holy Magic Hall also disappeared without a trace. In the blink of an eye, except for the snow-white disk that was still standing in the Xing River, everything disappeared without a trace like a mirage. The gods in front of the gate of hell were stunned, and so was Dakini. Looking at the snow-white giant, she stammered, "Queen, what is going on?" Inside the snow-white disk, there was a reply. However, the reply caused the Voidwalker mother's body to stiffen. Hee, your queen should still be preparing her army in the realm of devils, waiting to go, Li Yao said with a smile. That voice, it was Su Yu. He did not leave, Dakini was shocked and said in disbelief. This giant disc is yours? Such a horrible destructive object, in her knowledge, could only belong to the powerful demons. Su Yu said with a faint smile, Is it yours? Hearing this, Dakini's face turned pale. On the other hand, the gods were still in a state of endless shock. This horrible destructive giant object is Su Yu's? Dakini's face was pale and dark. Biting her lips, she said in a low voice, So, all this is a trap set by you? Sort of. Under the snow-white disk, a light beam fell, and Su Yu stepped out of the light with his hands behind his back. Behind him, a woman followed. It was Bai Wanqing, and behind her, there was a vague dragon shadow. The dragon shadow shook slightly, creating real wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. The real scene before was created by Bai Wanqing, which came from the third magical power of the epoch-making dragon, a dream like 1,000 years. She could create a world with just a thought. Therefore, not only did it confuse ordinary gods, even the cunning Mother Dakini failed to notice any flaws in it. Mother Dakini's face darkened. Sensing the gazes coming from behind her, she said in a deep voice, Fine. Good. Such ruthless methods. You tricked me into revealing everything, making me the target of the God Domain Empire. What a good move. I think that the previous scene was also planned by you, right? Purposely allowing my plan to succeed, allowing my prestige to reach an unprecedented peak. Then, he plotted to expose my true colors and let me fall from the highest position to the lowest. Only then could he sever the sympathy and friendship of all the gods in the God Realm Empire for me. Am I right? She stared at Su Yu, her eyes full of hatred. Su Yu nodded nonchalantly. If he really wanted to rescue Hirushu and the others, wouldn't he have succeeded by sending Yongyechushua and the others? She had sent the weaker Xing deity and the others because she had guessed that Mother Dakini had set up a trap. Su Yu played along and completed Mother Dakini's plan very cooperatively. Su Yu's reputation was ruined, and Mother Dakini's prestige was at its peak. Simply betraying the God Realm Empire was not enough to incur the hatred of all the gods. For example, those gods who were friends with Mother Dakini would not hate her too much. Some would even sympathize with her. But now, their hatred for Mother Dakini was born out of love. It was the most profound hatred. Not only had she betrayed them, but she had also been heartless and cruel. She had insulted them as fools, useless trash, and the gods who had been friends with her in the past. She had even tried to kill them with her own hands without hesitation. Her ugly face was exposed. It could be said that she had really cut herself off from the gods. Now, who would sympathize with her? No one. At this moment, she was the one who had lost her reputation. Su Yu, on the other hand, had become the savior of the world from a traitor. He had won the approval of all the gods and all the people in the world. This was what Su Yu ultimately wanted. It was easy to kill Mother Dakini, but it was difficult to win the hearts of the people in the world. Now, he had killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Mother Dakini's eyes were full of hatred. Fine. I admit defeat. But do you think you have won? My methods are far more than this. Swish. Mother Dakini disappeared from where she was and teleported to the palace. The corners of Su Yu's mouth curled into a smile. When Mother Dakini approached the palace, 3 figures walked out from nearby. They were Yongyechushua and Luoshui. The 3 of them looked relaxed as if they had been waiting for a long time. They had blocked Mother Dakini's way. Brother Su, you have a good foresight. You want to escape into the ancient ruins? Why don't you ask us first? Yongyechushua said calmly as she cast a shy look at Su Yu in the distance. The more she knew about Su Yu, the more horrible he was. The phrase, taking every conceivable possibility into account, was vividly displayed by him. Yongye Wuheng said, Do you want to surrender, or do you want us to attack you? Mother Dakini was so angry that she was about to break through with a roar. Luo Xue snorted disdainfully. Then, he performed a powerful sorcery to destroy Mother Dakini's soul. This was the first time witchcraft had appeared in the world of the Xing River. Even Su Yu had suffered a great loss when he first encountered witchcraft, let alone Mother Dakini. Mother Dakini's soul was severely injured. She screamed miserably. Yongye Chushue didn't want to be outdone. She shattered the celestial energy sphere in Mother Dakini's abdomen with the heavenly voice of the Dragon Emperor. Yongye Wuheng's eyelids twitched slightly. He thought to himself, aren't they too cruel? Although Mother Dakini was hateful, they had to fight with each other just to catch a person, which was really annoying. Seeing Mother Dakini was about to be killed by the two tigresses, Yongye Wuheng took action immediately and captured Mother Dakini, whose body and soul had been severely injured. However, right at this moment, the palace below was suddenly shattered. Then, a strong figure in golden armor stepped out. A powerful aura of the third heaven, wrapped in a strange phenomenon of heaven and earth, rose against the sky. Yongye Wuheng suddenly had a premonition of danger. He shouted in a low voice, "Flying dragon in the sky!" He turned into a giant dragon shadow and swooped down to fight with the mysterious man in the sky. Bang! Bang! The deafening roar spread out like ripples, crushing the cavern world near the palace into dust. Yongye Wuheng groaned, and the dragon shadow flew backward. Yongye Chushue and Luo Xue both exerted their strength to stop Yongye Wuheng from flying backward. Su Yu, who didn't want to intervene, changed his expression slightly and teleported over. Yongye Wuheng's flying dragon in the sky was one of the three great magical powers of the epic-making dragon. It contained supreme dragon power and was extremely powerful. However, Su Yu believed that he was no match for Yongye Wuheng in terms of strength. No one in the level 3 heavens could compete with Yongye Wuheng in terms of strength. However, the golden-armored figure in front of him had knocked Yongye Wuheng backward. At the same cultivation level, his strength was higher than Yongye Wuheng's. As he fixed his eyes on the figure, the golden light on his body was gradually penetrated. When Su Yu saw his true face, he was shocked. Zhan Wushuang. Zhan Wushuang was the #1 genius in the cavern world of Jiuzhou in the past. Before the chaos of Jiuzhou, he left with Gu Taishu and his junior sister Zishuan and entered the galaxy. Since then, he had disappeared mysteriously. Now, not only had he appeared, but his strength had also increased greatly. Zhan Wushuang's golden light flashed, and he grabbed Dakini with one hand. Across the ruined palace, he looked directly at Su Yu. "Long time no see, Su Yu." "Zhan Wushuang," Su Yu said. "A man who was born with a miracle in his life was destined to be an emperor. In Jiuzhou, he was a legendary existence. Even if Su Yu defeated the Central Prefecture's king in the end, he didn't get the glory of being the #1 genius. Because that glory only belonged to Zhan Wushuang. He only got the title of #1 in Jiuzhou. The title of genius belonged to Zhan Wushuang." Su Yu thought that with their cultivation at the time, they would eventually be ordinary in the Great Eastern Alliance. Who would have thought that the change would be so great? Zhan Wushuang said, "Your reputation is like thunder. In Jiuzhou, you are the #1 person in Jiuzhou and in Xing River. I always thought that there would be a battle between you and me eventually. The world couldn't contain so many #1s. There was only one #1. It was either Zhan Wushuang or Su Yu. However, now is not the time for our battle," Zhan Wushuang said. "This world is more dangerous than you can imagine, and it's not the time for us to fight." "What a coincidence. I don't want to fight you either," Su Yu said calmly. "However, the world is dangerous, and that's not the reason why I don't want to fight you." Zhan Wushuang said, "Oh? What's the reason?" Su Yu said, "Because I don't think there is a need to fight you. You can take the so-called #1 if you like, and I don't care." Zhan Wushuang looked at Su Yu and shook his head lightly. "You can't refuse the general trend. There will be a battle between you and me, whether you are willing or not." His tone was firm, as if he knew something, which made him seem very mysterious. After a moment of silence, Su Yu said with his hands behind his back, "If you really want to fight, I think there is a better reason for it right now." Then, he looked at Mother Dakini. Zhan Wushuang shook his head. "It's a pity that I can't hand her over to you. No matter what kind of person she is, she has always been kind to me and Zishuan. If you want to kill her, you will have to kill me first." Su Yu chuckled. His smile was carefree. The next moment, 6 blood-red eyes appeared behind him, which emitted many black lights. 6 paths of natural family. This is the reason why we are fighting now. Su Yu sighed. He should have known that Dakini was involved in the disappearance of Zhan Wushuang and the others. This was because they had another identity in Jiuzhou. They were the disciples of the Central Prefecture's king. It was normal for Dakini to train her deceased son's disciples, especially Zhan Wushuang, who was born with the fate of an emperor, and no one could predict his fate. Chapter 1497. Unparalleled Overbearing Fist. With a low growl, Zhan Wushuang's eyes suddenly became extremely fierce. He waved his fists in the air, and between his fists there was a vague shadow of chain fragments. Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. A punch triggered the chain of the Great Path rules? What kind of magical power was this? Next, a scene that surprised Su Yu even more appeared. The all-destroying 6 paths of nature was directly smashed by this pair of fists. In the past, Nitian could not block it and was seriously injured, but Zhan Wushuang could. Su Yu was secretly shocked. What had he experienced over the years to achieve such a transformation? He was not inferior to Su Yu in the slightest. The unparalleled overbearing fist shattered the black light, and its momentum did not stop. Seeing that even Su Yu was about to be hurt, Su Yu snorted coldly and turned into a shocking divine weapon, bursting with endless fighting will. Boundless fighting will. The divine weapon was extremely fierce. Although it was destroyed by the unparalleled overbearing fist, it was immediately reborn, and the fighting will was even stronger. In just 2 breaths, the divine weapon had transformed dozens of times, and the fighting will reached a terrifying level. The emitted fighting will alone caused the space of the starry sky to tremble, and there were faint signs of destruction. The cavern world below was on the verge of collapse and was about to be destroyed. The gods who were spectating the battle from afar immediately backed away. Even the slightest contact with the battle intent would destroy their god Tao. The entire God Realm Empire was shrouded in this fighting will and was almost destroyed. Emperor Su. Emperor Yu is so terrifying? The gods of the Great Western Alliance were shocked. Too strong. What kind of realm does he have to be in to have such strength? He is more than 10 times stronger than Dakini. The whole world was trembling. Zhan Wushuang's face changed slightly, but he was not angry. He laughed loudly. Su Yu, you really did not let me down. I am more and more convinced that there will be a battle between you and me. As he spoke, the unparalleled overbearing fist was destroyed, and the boundless fighting will reached Zhan Wushuang. Zhan Wushuang laughed. The unparalleled emperor. Boom! Behind him, thunder rumbled, and a huge divine Laksana appeared. It had a crown on its head and wore a yellow robe. Its face was solemn, and it exuded endless imperial power. As soon as the divine Laksana opened its eyes, a flood of power flowed out and forcibly dissolved Su Yu's fighting will. Su Yu's pupils shrank again. That divine Laksana is the divine warrior of heaven and earth. Apart from him, there was actually another person in the world who possessed the Dharma idol of the sovereign of heaven and earth. Zhan Wushuang grabbed Mother Dakini and plunged into the ground. Su Yu's eyes flashed as he chased after him. However, Zhan Wushuang plunged into the ruins, not caring about the ruins at all. He directly blasted a huge hole in the ruins below. Incomparably astonishing spiritual energy surged out of the hole, which was 100 times denser than in the lost god realm. Suyu furrowed his brows. Is it that ancient ruin? With a thought, Suyu quickly snuck in and chased after Zhan Wushuang. Almost instinctively, Yongye Chushue and Luo Shui drilled into the ground for fear of falling behind. Yongye Wuheng smiled bitterly. Alas, why can't I have such a blessing? With that, Yongye Wuheng also got into it. Next, Bai Wanqing and the other gods rushed over. Su Yu and the three strong men walked away, leaving Bai Wanqing alone to keep the situation under control. She wanted to follow Su Yu, but she had no choice but to stay behind and take charge of the situation. Clean up the ruins immediately, guard the surroundings, and don't let anyone come close. Second, immediately lead people to take over the cavern world of Mother Dakini and investigate the relevant people. Don't let anyone else go. Third, deities who are not on a mission must return to the cavern world to appease the creatures and announce what happened today. Don't cause chaos. The deities didn't know who she was. They only knew that she accompanied Su Yu, so they naturally regarded her as Su Yu's trusted aide. How could they not obey her? Under her leadership, the God Realm Empire, which had undergone great changes, weakened the adverse effects of today's events to the greatest extent and quickly stabilized. When the ruins of the palace were cleared, a huge gap appeared in front of them. Waves of extremely pure spiritual energy swept out from it, and it was extremely difficult for ordinary deities to even take a step forward. Bai Wanqing stood at the edge of the entrance, feeling the majestic spiritual energy, and said, "Is this the entrance to the ancient ruin? I wonder what kind of scene it is, to be able to nurture a talent like Zhan Wushuang and cultivate no less than 10 level 4 strong men." As she was thinking, suddenly, she seemed to have sensed something and took out the Starry Sky book. The Starry Sky book trembled slightly in her palm, as if it was foretelling something. Bai Wanqing was slightly startled, and her purple pupils shone brightly. She seemed to have seen something in the dark, and her eyes kept following the direction of the object in the dark. Finally, she fixed her gaze on the entrance to the ruins. Her beautiful face changed slightly, and she murmured, "The line of fate leads directly to the ancient ruin. Does this mean that the person Su Yu is looking for is in the ruins?" "But," she frowned slightly, "why do I feel that this line of fate is a little strange? It seems to be being led by something?" Speaking of Su Yu, the aura of Zhan Wushuang, the tracker, descended directly on the ancient ruin. As soon as it landed, a clamor rushed into his ears. When he opened his eyes, Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. How is this possible? What he saw was not the ruins that had been silent for many years, nor was it a barren land filled with dead silence. Instead, it was a battlefield that shook the heavens. The sky was filled with endless strange weapons. Groups of strangely dressed, strong men were piloting all kinds of strange weapons, fighting to the death in the vast sky. As far as the eye could see, the sky was filled with densely packed creatures and weapons. It was like a vast and boundless ocean. Su Yu was shocked by the sight, especially those strangely shaped weapons, which surprised Su Yu even more. Weapons of civilization? Among them, 1 or 2 were the weapons of civilization that Su Yu was forging. There were many more that he could not name, and even the Empire of Darkness had never mastered them. The weapons of the various civilizations clashed on the battlefield, bursting forth with colorful colors and erupting with waves of terrifying power that were stronger than the last. The brutality of the battle was breathtaking. Such a vast war was far from comparable to the Battle of Xing Capital. This was a war of civilization weapons, a war of the era of the ancient God realm. Of course, it could not exist in this era. Su Yu slowly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his eyes were bursting with bright light. Breaking the absurd. The earth-shattering sound of the battle stopped abruptly. The boundless battlefield gradually dissipated, turning into light clouds. The whole world was like a reflection blown away by the wind, dissipating with a flash. A real world appeared in front of him. It was a vast expanse of white, frozen world. There was only boundless coldness and not the slightest bit of vitality. To be precise, all vitality was frozen under the ice. Ferocious beasts that were running, rare spirit herbs, surging rivers, shining sun and moon, and endless fleeing creatures, all of them were frozen. The scene seemed to be frozen in time and space before the arrival of a disaster. All the creatures were frozen in an instant. Seeing this, Suyu was shocked, because he could feel that the ice was not just cold. It was also filled with the great path rules, freezing everything, including time. For example, the frozen spirit herb under his feet was the most common spirit herb in the world, and no means could have preserved it for hundreds of millions of years. But now it was as fresh as ever, as if it had just been frozen. Because it was not only the spirit herb itself that was frozen, but also time. Even time had been frozen into ice. The strength of the owner of the ice was incredible. Yongye Chushue and the others were also deeply shocked. However, they had not peeped into the power of time like Suyu had been frozen. "Where is this place?" Luo Xue murmured, deeply shocked. Suyu shook his head and looked straight into the depths of the white world of ice and snow. The illusion just now came from there. The remaining breath of Zhan Wushuang was also in that direction. "Let's go and have a look," Suyu said. The group crossed the world of ice and snow, and the deeper they went, the more surprised they became. Along the way, there were similar scenes, and more powerful creatures were frozen, and more terrible civilization weapons were sealed. They even saw a creature of the second layer of the heavens. Everyone took a breath of cold air and continued to move towards the deepest part, until a frozen sacred sky warship appeared in front of them. Above the sacred sky warship was the only place in the entire frozen world without the breath of living creatures. Because it was a cavern house built by later generations, there was no doubt that it was the force that Dakini had secretly cultivated for many years. The captains of the 10 great fleets and countless imperial guards were all cultivated in this cavern world, including Zhan Wushuang. Suyu used his transparent eye to scan the cavern world. The first thing he saw was an extremely huge furnace, burning with raging flames. Groups of imperial guards were collecting frozen creatures and spirit herbs from all over the place and throwing them into the furnace. In an instant, those frozen creatures melted instantly. However, they did not come back to life, but turned into nothingness. They were frozen in time billions of years ago, and now that the ice was lifted, they suddenly appeared in the present time and space. What would happen when two completely different time and space collided? It was annihilation. Their physical bodies were destroyed in an instant. However, when they were destroyed, they released the divine energy in their physical bodies, which was dispersed into magnificent spiritual energy, filling the ruins. This was why the spiritual energy in the ruins was so terrifying. The force that blocked Bai Wanqing's prying was the force of the collision of time and space. At the same time, what was released was not only the spiritual energy, but also the memories of those frozen people before they died. They were all released together, turned into images, and appeared above the furnace. Most of them were fighting before death, just as Suyu saw when he first entered. This was also why they saw the strange battlefield of time and space billions of years ago, because these were all the memories of the frozen creatures here. It was not hard to imagine how many frozen creatures they had melted in the past 100 years. Around the furnace, a large number of strong men gathered. Every time a creature was melted and annihilated, they immediately accelerated the absorption of the burst of spiritual energy to improve their cultivation. At the same time, every time a frozen creature performed a move before they died, they immediately recorded it. Suyu saw it clearly, and he was shocked. No wonder Dakini had cultivated so many strong men in just 100 years. With such inexhaustible spiritual energy and cultivation techniques, there was no need to worry about not being able to achieve great things. However, was this really a good thing? Those creatures were the ones who fought against the invading enemies in the great disaster billions of years ago. Now, the remaining descendants were using their bodies to seek cultivation? Chapter 1498. Shaking his head, Suyu continued to scan the area with his transparent eyes. As expected, he found Zhan Wushuang and Dakini. However, there were two other people here. One was Gu Taishu, the enemy of the central prefecture who had tried to kill Suyu but failed. The other one was Zishuan, the person whom Suyu felt sorry for. The four of them were healing Dakini's injuries together. She had recovered a little, but the celestial energy sphere she had lost couldn't be recovered. Her cultivation was destined to drop by a whole level. Zhan Wushuang opened his eyes abruptly as if he sensed Suyu's gaze. He sighed and said, "Did they pass the memory labyrinth so quickly? It seems like we have to give up this place." Dakini's face was pale. Biting her lips, she said gloomily, "This place is my foundation. I can't lose it. The three of you can kill them if you join hands. Go." However, Zhan Wushuang shook his head lightly. "Master's wife, it's hard to stop him. When he regains the people's heart, you will fall from the throne. If you kill them, the God Realm Empire won't tolerate you anymore. Moreover, even if we join hands, we may not be able to defeat them." "You?" Dakini stared at Zhan Wushuang. "Fine, I'm injured and lost the throne. So, you've grown up?" Zhan Wushuang said calmly, "My wings have never grown soft. Han Xian, open the time gate." However, there was no response from behind. When he looked back, he saw Han Xian standing in the same place, lost in thought. Zhan Wushuang said, "Or, should I call you Zishuan?" Zishuan was the name Suyu had given to her. Hearing this name, Zishuan came back to herself. Her face was filled with complicated emotions. She said in low spirits, "Okay." She turned around and entered a sealed secret room. There was a stone door carved with the words of the heavenly book on it. The surface of the stone door was full of cracks, as if it was about to break. The strangest thing was that it contained an extremely ancient aura, which meant it had been passed down for a long time. It should belong to this relic. However, it wasn't frozen like the other living creatures and spiritual object. It was still alive. Han Xian walked up to the stone door and imbued her divine power into it. The giant door immediately emitted a gentle fluorescent light, emitting traces of the power of time. Suyu, who was observing from the outside, raised his eyebrows and said, "Let's go in. They might try to escape." Although the abode had defenses, how could it withstand their combined attacks? In an instant the abode was broken open, and Suyu and the others barged in. The cave abode experts along the way didn't dare to move under the suppression of their divine might. No one dared to stop them. After a few breaths, Suyu barged into the place where Zhan Wushuang and the others were hiding. Bang, accompanied by a deafening shattering sound, a huge mountain where they were hiding was smashed to pieces, revealing the four people. Zhan Wushuang, Gu Taishu, and Han Xuan's gazes met with Suyu's, and a series of sparks flew. After 10 years, this group of former creatures of the 9 regions actually confronted each other in such a situation. Suyu swept his eyes over them, and his gaze stopped on Han Xian for a moment before fixing on Mother Dakini. Without uttering a single word, Suyu immediately used his boundless fighting will and pointed it at Mother Dakini. To Mother Voidwalker, Yang Qi's fierce and boundless fighting will was something she couldn't resist. Unparalleled tyrant fist. Zhan Wushuang finally stepped forward. His fists, which carried the shadow of the Great Path rules, protected Mother Dakini. At the same time, he said, "Han Xian, Gu Taishu, you two deal with those 3 people. I will protect Master's wife and leave first." Gu Taishu smiled proudly as he glanced at Suyu. Then, he flew over and stopped Yongye Wuheng and the others who were trying to surround Mother Dakini. After struggling for a while, Han Xian also rushed over. It was 2 against 3. Yongye Wuheng said arrogantly, I don't believe you are as powerful as Zhan Wushuang. Flying dragon in the sky. With an angry roar, Yongye Wuheng turned into a dragon and crashed into Gu Taishu. Gu Taishu's body emitted colorful light, and he turned into a 9-colored giant. Body of 9 spirits. Bang, his giant shadow was hit hard, and one of the 9 colors on his body disappeared immediately. However, the remaining 8 colors were still as strong as before. Relying on his giant body, Gu Taishu managed to take this attack head-on. Yongye Wuheng was surprised. What kind of body is this? An ordinary level 3 deity would definitely die after being hit by this attack. However, Gu Taishu had only destroyed 1 color. Yongye Wuheng shouted angrily. His body suddenly expanded, and his strength doubled. The colors on Gu Taishu's body disappeared one by one. Until the last color was destroyed, Gu Taishu still couldn't break through. Yongye Wuheng was surprised. He couldn't do anything to Gu Taishu. He was surprised, and so was Gu Taishu. The body of 9 spirits was a god-level body that he had been dreaming of completing since he was in Jiuzhou. Originally, he had kept it to retaliate against Su Yu. However, Su Yu's follower had almost destroyed his body of 9 spirits. Looking at Su Yu, Gu Taishu found that he and Zhan Wushuang were equally matched. To this day, Gu Taishu still felt that Zhan Wushuang was a mountain that he couldn't climb. They had fought many times, but he had never lasted more than half an hour in Zhan Wushuang's hands. However, Su Yu had the same strength as Zhan Wushuang. The cruel reality was no less than a heavy blow to Gu Taishu. The two of them were in a stalemate. On the other hand, Han Xian stopped Yongye Chushue and Luo Xue. Although the two women usually didn't see eye to eye with each other, they cooperated very well in front of the enemy. One was proficient in the supreme sorcery path, and the other had inherited the magical powers of the epic-making dragon. When the two women joined forces, even a level 2 strong man would have to be cautious. However, Han Xian was also surprisingly difficult to deal with. When she struck out with her pure palm print, it was indescribably cold. Both sorcery and the magical powers of the dragon tribe were frozen in an instant. Han Xuan's body gradually became transparent in the battle. She was crystal clear and extremely cold, as if she was a woman carved out of cold jade. Yongye Chushue's beautiful eyes flashed with anger. She had seen the look in Su Yu's eyes just now. When Su Yu glanced at her, he ignored the rest of the people except for this woman. The way she stared at Su Yu was also very strange. As expected, there must be a story between them. Yongye Chushue was not willing to admit defeat to a woman who had a story with Su Yu. Xue, go and help Su Yu. Leave this woman to me. Luo Xue looked at the battle between Su Yu and Zhan Wushuang and was overjoyed. He immediately went to help. Soul-destroying lifeless curse. Luo Xue had seen Yongye Wuheng's strength and naturally did not dare to underestimate him. The strongest sorcery was released with a loud bang. The terrifying and cryptic ripples rolled out like a huge wave. Zhan Wushuang, who was fighting with Su Yu, seemed to sense it. He frowned and said, "What a strange power! It doesn't seem to belong to the divine path." At the critical moment, he weaved a seal with one hand and shouted in a deep voice, "King Jiang Shani." Walala, in an instant, a virtual shadow of mountains and rivers gathered around him, condensed into a robe and fell on his body. The sorcery ripples bombarded the robe, and the mountains and rivers within the robe were destroyed. However, the robe was not damaged. All the sorcery energy was absorbed by the robe, and Dakini was not hurt at all. Zhan Wushuang tore off the King Jiang Shani's robe and put it on Dakini. Then, he pushed her away and said, "Go to the time gate, you go first." Without hesitation, Dakini fled for her life. Luo Xue chased after her, but no matter how powerful her sorcery was, she could not break through the King Jiang Shani's robe. Seeing that Dakini was about to escape into the time gate, Luo Xue's face fell. She bit her red lips, and a drop of bright red blood flowed out from the corner of her lip. Soul-binding curse. The blood splashed and dispersed into dense, fine threads in the air. The fine threads weaved into a giant net, which fell from the sky and bound Dakini tightly. Don't move. Otherwise, your soul will be destroyed first. Luo Xue's face was a little pale. It seemed that using this technique consumed a lot of sorcery energy. This was a secret technique passed on to her by the Moonwatch sect leader. Because it was too overbearing, it could easily destroy a person's soul, and it consumed a lot of her sorcery energy. She could not use it unless absolutely necessary. She had no other choice. Her opponent's King Jiangshani was completely immune to sorcery energy, so she could only use the secret technique. But if she could capture Dakini, it would all be worth it. She turned her head to look at Suyu. Imagining Suyu praising her, she could not help but smile. Even without her warning, Dakini could feel the scorching heat and excruciating pain coming from the depths of her soul. It was as if thousands of ice blades had pierced into her soul, and she grimaced in pain. Most importantly, her opponent was holding the other end of the blood net. If he pulled, the giant net would tighten, and her soul would really be destroyed. Dakini's eyes turned, and her expression softened. She revealed a helpless and bitter look, and laughed at herself. Haha, I couldn't escape after all. This is fate. Luo Xue raised her sharp chin and said, It's good that you know that. Come here obediently and listen to Brother Su's punishment. All right, as long as you don't hurt my soul, I'll listen to you, Dakini said, as she walked over slowly. With the blood net in her hand, Luo Xue was not worried that she would attack violently. However, just as Dakini approached, Luo Xue suddenly sensed that something was wrong. Holding the blood net in her hand, she suddenly sensed that Dakini had become an empty shell in the net. She had lost her soul. Oh no! Luo Xue's expression changed. Without hesitation, she tightened the blood net immediately. How dare you! Mother Voidwalker's enraged voice echoed out like thunder in his ears. However, Luo Xue was very decisive. She decided to destroy Dakini's body first. With a cracking sound, Dakini's divine body was cut into countless pieces by the blood net. At the same time, Luo Xue's back was hit violently. With her cultivation and strength, she should have been able to block the attack. However, the secret technique of the soul-binding spell consumed almost all of her sorcery energy. In a hurry, she could only manage to form a sorcery spell and hid it behind her. With a shrill scream, the sorcery spell hit something. However, Luo Xue also took a blow from her opponent. The divine energy penetrated her chest, and Luo Xue's heart and arteries were damaged. Blood gushed out uncontrollably, and her chest was covered with blood. Instantly, her chest was soaked by the dazzling red blood. Su Yu, Yongye Wuheng, and Yongye Chushue, who were watching this scene, were all shocked. Chapter 1499. Sky-splitting yin-yang style. A Tai Chi pattern flashed and defused Zhan Wushuang's punch. Su Yu turned into a beam of light and rushed over. His palm was filled with divine power as he struck a transparent soul behind Luo Xue. Swish! The Monarch River mountain robe that was draped over his body instantly shattered. However, the cunning Mother Dakini leaped out of the way before the palm's strike could reach her, like a gray shadow. She did not jump into the door of time immediately but caught Luo Xue, who was seriously injured and about to pass out. Su Yu was afraid of hurting Luo Xue, so the divine power in his palm was not released in time. Seizing this subtle opportunity, Dakini disappeared into the door of time. A red light flashed in Su Yu's right eye as he used the power of space to explore it. However, there was nothing in the door of time, not even space. How could he teleport them back? At this time, Zhan Wushuang shouted, Dakini has left. Let's retreat quickly. Su Yu's heart was filled with murderous intent. He turned around abruptly, his eyes like those of an ancient ferocious beast. It's all your fault. Zhan Wushuang's heart trembled as he sensed Su Yu's murderous intent. He apologized, It's a pity, but we all have our own positions. As he spoke, Zhan Wushuang took a deep breath and shouted, "Divine throne of heaven and earth!" Rumble! The shadow of a golden dragon throne fell from the sky. 99 real dragons were carved on the dragon throne, inlaid with countless suns, moons, and stars. It exuded the supreme majesty of a celestial emperor. Facing the dragon throne, Su Yu felt a sense of helplessness and panic, as if he had first encountered the tree goddess. He even had an impulse to worship it. Yongye Chushue was trembling all over, and she could not help but kneel down. She was shocked. What is this thing? Even in the face of the nine-headed god, she did not have the slightest impulse to worship it. Yongye Wuheng also could not resist the oppression of the dragon throne. However, he seemed to recall something and murmured, "Divine throne of heaven and earth. Divine throne. Wait, is this the legendary lost emperor-based saint artifact, the divine throne of heaven and earth?" The emperor-based saint artifact ranking was incomplete. Even during the era of the 9 emperors, many emperor-based saint artifacts were missing. The World Annihilation Emperor, who ranked first, only had the World Annihilation Plate, which ranked 5th. As for the first to the 4th place, they were all missing. Even their names were known to very few. Yongye Wuheng's face was gradually filled with shock. Yes, it's definitely the 4th emperor-based saint weapon, the heavenly throne of heaven and earth. Although it was only a phantom, its power was not inferior to the 10th emperor-based saint weapon. The divine throne suppressed the 3 of them to the point that they couldn't move. Only then did Gu Taishu and Han Xian withdraw. As he passed by Su Yu, Gu Taishu's killing intent flared up. However, when he met Su Yu's bloodthirsty gaze, he hesitated. "What are you waiting for? The phantom image can only exist for 3 breaths of time." Zhan Wushuang shouted. The veins on his forehead bulged, and it was obvious that he was straining himself. Only then did Gu Taishu leap toward the time gate unwillingly. However, at that moment Zhan Wushuang seemed to have felt something. His expression changed slightly, and he stared at Su Yu. "What do you want to do?" Su Yu's forehead squirmed, and a hidden aura of brutality, savagery, and greed seemed to have come from ancient times. That aura made people tremble and feel uneasy. It made people instinctively feel fear from the depths of their souls, as if it was an existence at the top of the food chain. Poof! With a soft sound, a crack appeared between Su Yu's brows. A pitch-black and indifferent eyeball shone brilliantly, and it was extremely intelligent. "You forced me to do this," Su Yu said in a low voice, his voice full of killing intent. "I didn't want to be your enemy, but you just had to go against me. If that's the case, all of you can die and fall into eternal silence." Heaven-devouring demonic eye. Open! As Su Yu shouted, the eyeball seemed to come alive, and it shot out a greedy and brutal look. It seemed to be laughing. It was unknown whether it was laughing at the lowly creature before it, or at Su Yu. After suppressing it for so many years, it had finally released it. Yun Yazi had once said that once the Tao Tai's eye matured, it would not stop devouring, and its appetite would grow bigger and bigger until there was nothing left to devour, and it would devour itself. All these years, Su Yu had almost never used it, and it had greatly delayed the maturation of the Tao Tai's eye. However, the appearance of the 9-headed heavenly god had awakened the Tao Tai's eye from its slumber, and it had matured ahead of time. However, it immediately fell into a deep sleep, and if no one woke it up, it would not wake up in a short period of time. However, Su Yu still woke it up. The Tao Tai's eye turned, revealing a greedy look, and finally fixed on the shadow of the heaven and earth divine throne above its head. A ray of black light shot out, enveloping the shadow of the heaven and earth divine throne. With a whoosh, the illusory figure disappeared without a trace. Puff! Zhan Wushuang was caught off guard, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face changed dramatically. The Tao Tai's eye. Run! Swish! The first to react was Gu Taishu. He was originally near the time gate, and when he saw the scene, he was scared out of his wits, and immediately escaped into it. Next was Zhan Wushuang, who turned into a beam of light and came to the time gate. At that moment, Han Xian also reacted, and immediately escaped to the time gate. However, just as she moved, a violent force came crashing down. Han Xian subconsciously gathered her divine power to resist, but she could not resist the force at all. Her defense was completely broken, and the great force penetrated her body, blasting her away. In the fog that filled the sky, Han Xian saw a pair of eyes that she was very familiar with. In the past, when those eyes looked at her, they were filled with guilt, but now there was only indifference and disgust. She suddenly felt a stabbing pain in her heart, more painful than her body. Zhan Wushuang turned around abruptly and shouted, "Junior sister!" At the last moment, Su Yu broke free from the oppression of the heaven and earth divine throne and intercepted Han Xian personally. Moreover, he did not hold back at all. "Su Yu, junior sister is innocent. If you want to attack, come at me!" Zhan Wushuang shouted. Su Yu's face was cold and murderous. He said, "Innocent? When she tried to stop me, and caused Luo Xue to be captured, did she think she was innocent?" Zhan Wushuang took a deep breath and said, "Fine, you are on different sides, but have you forgotten the friendship between you two?" Hearing that, Su Yu's face became even colder. "When she chose to be my enemy, did she think about the friendship between us? Or did she think that I would not kill her, as always?" With a breath, Su Yu sucked Han Xian into his palm, grabbed her throat, and said coldly, "I have already repaid what I owed you. You caused my friend to be seriously injured and captured, so you must pay the price." Han Xian looked at the unfamiliar eyes, and there was only endless sorrow in her heart. Yes, when did Su Yu ever owe her anything? Why did she think that she could be forgiven for going against Su Yu? Why did she think that she could be forgiven for causing the death of his friend? The bitterness in her heart spread, and Han Xuan's eyes dimmed. The winner takes all, just like how the Blood Emperor failed to kill you, and was killed by you instead. There are no innocent people in this world, and I am no different from the Blood Emperor. You can kill me, I have no complaints." Su Yu said coldly, "Fine, go and die with Luo Xue." Seeing that Su Yu was going to kill her without any mercy, Zhan Wushuang said, "Wait." Su Yu glanced at him coldly. "If I were you, I would have escaped long ago, and not waited here to be devoured by the heaven-devouring demonic eyes." As he spoke, the heaven-devouring demonic eyes stared at Zhan Wushuang, and the light of greed shone brightly. "If you want to save your friend, please hear me out," Zhan Wushuang said. Su Yu looked at him, loosened his grip a little, and said, "Speak." Zhan Wushuang said, "I think we can exchange hostages. Use your friend in exchange for Han Xian." Su Yu pondered. "Can you make the decision for them?" "Haha, they are a group of people who have lost their power. Of course, they will listen to whoever is stronger. Unfortunately, I am the strongest among them," Zhan Wushuang said. Su Yu nodded slowly, put Han Xian down, and imprisoned her divine energy. He said, "I will give you 2 months. In the ruins of the world of divine remains, if Luo Xue is harmed in the slightest, Han Xian will die, and so will all of you." Zhan Wushuang said, "I guarantee that Miss Xue will be unharmed." When he finished speaking, Zhan Wushuang looked at Han Xian and said, "Junior sister, please wait patiently." As he spoke, he entered the door of time. When he entered, the door of time shattered with a loud bang, leaving only scattered stones. Su Yu stood for a long time and said, "Take her back and guard her strictly. If she tries to escape, kill her." Yongye Chushua nodded and left with Han Xian. Han Xian clenched her fists. She felt as if a huge rock was pressing down on her chest, making it hard for her to breathe. Why did this happen? Their reunion should not have ended like this. In the vast snowfield, Su Yu was the only one left standing in silence. He picked up the broken pieces of the door of time one by one, recalling all the bits and pieces of Luo Xue in his mind. From being hunted by her, to the saint lady looking for a husband, to her disguise and tagging along, to the red dust dream in Xingjing, and finally to the 5 years of training together, everything felt like it had happened just yesterday. Her feelings were vividly displayed in disguise, in the red dust dream, in marrying Su Yu, and in bearing his child. However, Su Yu pretended not to know and turned a blind eye to it. Now that he did not know whether she was alive or dead, the hidden regret surfaced in his heart. If it were not for his praise and favor, would Luo Xue have risked her life like that? No way. Su Yu could not blame her capture on the enemy with a clear conscience. He was also responsible. Holding the stone in his palm, Su Yu's eyes were filled with determination. Xue, I will save you at all costs. Buzz. All of a sudden, the heaven-devouring demonic eye between Su Yu's brows, which had been suppressed by Su Yu several times, shot out a beam of black light, engulfing the furnace in the great hall. Su Yu's face fell. Trouble had finally come. Su Yu closed the heaven-devouring demonic eye, but as soon as he closed it, the Tao Tai's eye opened on its own, greedily swallowing the black light, engulfing everything in front of it. After a few attempts, the Tao Tai's eye would open on its own, engulfing everything in the world. It could no longer close, and it was no longer under his control. From now on, it would open and continue to engulf things. Each time, it would engulf more and more things, until it devoured itself. The worst situation had happened. Su Yu could not appear in front of anyone, or the heaven-devouring demonic eye would engulf him. The person she loved the most, her closest friend, her most loyal subordinate. None of them could appear directly in front of Su Yu. Hey, don't waste your time, you can't stop me. A cold, mocking voice rang out in Su Yu's mind. It was the Tao Tai's eye. Chapter 1500. Haha, when the Tao Tai's eye matures, it will form its own intelligence. The Tao Tai's eye said in Su Yu's mind. Work hard to find something stronger for me to devour. Otherwise, I will devour you, ha 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 ha. Hearing the Tao Tai's eye's arrogant voice, Su Yu's face gradually calmed down. He said, I thought you would have other ways to harm your host. It seems like you have no other way but to devour your host. The Tao Tai's eye said mockingly, Why? Do you still have a way to seal me again? Once I mature, no one in this world can make me sleep again, not even you. As it spoke, it shot out a few beams of black light, devouring a large number of frozen creatures. From the looks of it, it seemed like it intended to devour all the frozen creatures here. That greedy aura, that unscrupulous attitude, was unmistakable. Su Yu smiled faintly. I really can't make you fall into a deep sleep, but unfortunately, I can still seal you. Swish. A piece of paper as white as a snowflake appeared in Su Yu's palm. It rotated gently, emitting an indescribable aura. On the paper, there were lines of heavenly writing. As soon as the paper appeared, the Tao Tai's eye's mockery receded like a tide, replaced by solemnity. Tao paper? Who gave it to you? As it questioned, its voice became fierce and urgent. So this thing is called Tao paper? Su Yu said lightly, holding the Tao paper with one hand and pasting it between his eyebrows. The Tao Tai's eye was shocked. It shot out black light frantically, trying to devour the Tao paper. However, the Tao paper ignored the devouring eye, going against the black light and pasting it between his eyebrows. The devouring eye was forcibly sealed. The furious voice of the Tao Tai's eye echoed in Su Yu's mind for a long time. After a long time, the Tao Tai's eye calmed down and said in a low voice, Kid, are you sure you want to seal me? Su Yu smiled without saying a word. Was he going to wait for it to devour as it pleased? We can come to an agreement. I can choose to devour, but you can't seal me, Su Yu interrupted without hesitation. You don't have the right to negotiate. Goodbye. As he finished speaking, a divine power wrapped around his eyebrows, preventing the voice from reaching his mind. Just as his voice was about to be cut off, the Tao Yezai roared, "You can't seal me forever. No matter how strong the Tao paper is, it is still a dead object. Unless you never give me a chance to grow stronger, there will come a day when I will even devour the Tao paper." With a cold laugh, Su Yu said, "We'll talk about it when the time comes." His divine will surged in and completely surrounded his glabella. Inanimate object. Could it be that there is a living object in this world that can seal the Tao Tai? Su Yu vaguely caught some overtones from the words of the Tao Tai's eyes. As for giving it a chance to grow, unless the Tao Yezai was stronger than the nine-headed Es God, it would still be able to be sealed. The only regret was that it was impossible for Su Yu to wear the snow-white paper every day. It seems like I need to deal with the letter, Su Yu thought to himself. Now that the Dakini had escaped, the great relic that she had painstakingly excavated fell into Su Yu's hands. Su Yu sighed silently as he looked at the countless creatures frozen in the distant time and space. A ball of flame appeared in his palm, and with a gentle wave of his hand, it fluttered in all directions. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The past is all Yunyan. Rest in peace. A sky full of flames burned, turning the countless frozen creatures and the frozen spirit herbs into nothingness. Pieces of memories from before their deaths intersected in the air, densely packed together. It was like a flourishing scene. The shocking spiritual energy that was released also dissipated into the world, as if it had disappeared from the world along with those memories. When everything was burned away, the ancient relic was a vast expanse of whiteness, revealing the world barrier within the relic. Su Yu smiled faintly as he took to the skies. However, just as he left, he suddenly felt that something was still emitting spiritual energy, and he could not help but turn around to take a look. In the end, a crystal-like object appeared in front of his eyes. There is actually a frozen object that is not destroyed by the power of time and space? Su Yu was extremely surprised. He flew back to take a look and saw that it was an object that should have been buried in the deepest part of the ancient relic. It was an ice crystal that looked like a gem, about the size of a quail's egg, and it emitted a strange chill. As he approached it, Su Yu felt extremely cold and could not help but shiver. "What a frightening chill," Su Yu said to himself. He tried to wrap it with his divine power, and a scene that surprised Su Yu even more appeared. The ice crystal seemed to be defending itself, emitting an even more frightening chill, and a circle of the Great Path Rules fragments appeared around it. Su Yu was taken aback. "It's so cold that it attracted the Great Path Rules chains?" Many of the frozen creatures were invincible strong men when they were alive. However, after they were unfrozen, they were annihilated by the two forces of time and space, and turned into powder. Not to mention that this ice crystal was safe and sound, the chill it released had reached the level of attracting the Great Path Rules shadows. How terrifying was the weight of the chill! Stepping back a little, Su Yu looked around and suddenly understood something. He murmured, "Could it be that the reason this ancient relic has fallen into such an absolute freeze is because of this ice crystal? If that was the case, this ice crystal was too frightening, and even time could be frozen by it." Su Yu's eyes were filled with a hint of fierceness. If he could control the ice crystal, would he be able to increase his combat power? Thinking about it, he could throw it into a group of enemies and freeze them in an instant. By then, wouldn't they have to obey Su Yu's orders? As he spoke, Su Yu took out a Buddha bead and sucked the ice crystal into it. As a result, the Buddha bead was immediately frozen into a snow-white piece of ice. Su Yu felt a stinging pain in his wrist. Su Yu gasped slightly. "It's so cold even after isolating a cavern world? Fortunately, I didn't touch it directly just now." After collecting the ice crystal, Su Yu left the ancient relic and returned to the outside world. Bai Wanqing was already waiting outside. Seeing that Su Yu had returned with a snow-white letter, a surprised look appeared on his face. Su Yu said, "I will be in isolation for a few days. Inform me about the important matters of the God Realm Empire. You can handle the rest. After saying that, he left in a hurry. Bai Wanqing reached out to stop him, but Su Yu had disappeared without a trace. She couldn't help but say, "Really, I wanted to ask if you have found that old friend." Back in the secret room, Su Yu entered the replica of the World Annihilation Plate and found Wang Yunxian. At this moment, Wang Yunxian was wholeheartedly immersed in the forging of the heavenly Brahma puppet and had entered a state of forgetfulness. Su Yu stood behind him for a long time before he noticed him. He said, When did you come?" "I just arrived," Su Yu said with a faint smile. Wang Yunxian looked at Su Yu in surprise. "Is your face swollen? Why are you wearing a piece of white paper? Let me have a look." As he said that, he reached out to grab it. Su Yu dodged it cleverly and said, "Don't act rashly. It's dangerous." Could it be that I'm scared to death by your current glory?" Wang Yunxian joked. Su Yu shook his head. "It's a dangerous thing sealed by this piece of paper. Now, please do me a favor." Hearing Su Yu's seriousness, Wang Yunxian also became serious. What kind of danger can be sealed by a piece of paper? He carefully looked at the seemingly ordinary paper. Slowly, his expression became excited. He said in surprise, "This paper seems unusual. This material has never appeared in the Great Eastern Alliance. Not only in the Great Eastern Alliance but also in the entire God Realm. I want to ask you to refine this paper into a wearable artifact that can at least cover the center of my forehead," Su Yu said. "Provided that you can't remove the paper. In other words, it had to be refined on the spot." Wang Yunxian rubbed his chin and said, "It's a little difficult, but if you have a strong divine power, it will be much easier, because the refining process will produce some high temperature." Su Yu said, "Don't worry about whether it will hurt me or not. If you have a way, start refining it immediately." Wang Yunxian nodded. After looking at Su Yu for a while, he said, "I heard that you have now become the king of the God Realm Empire. Then, I will make a crown for you. The edge of the crown is just enough to cover the space between your eyebrows." Wang Yunxian prepared a jar of scorching earth fire lava, and asked Su Yu to immerse himself in it. The Taoist paper wouldn't melt in the fire. The paper could only be folded and embedded into the crown. As for the part of the Taoist paper between Su Yu's eyebrows, it couldn't be removed. Only a crystal hanging from the forehead of the crown could cover that part of the Taoist paper. The whole process lasted for 3 days and 3 nights before it was finally completed. A crystal crown stood majestically on top of Su Yu's head, giving off a sparkling and translucent luster. It made Su Yu's already handsome face look even more extraordinary. Even Wang Yunxian was stunned. He said, "It seems that my imitation of the Ice Crystal Emperor crown is the most suitable for you." Su Yu was surprised. "The Ice Crystal Emperor crown? What is that?" Wang Yunxian shook his head. "I'm not sure. I saw it in a small booklet. It is rumored that there are 4 divine artifacts that don't belong to this world. They are called the Supreme Emperor Set. The Ice Crystal Emperor crown is one of them. There are also the Emperor Starry Robe, the Emperor Killing Sword, and the Divine Throne of Heaven and Earth." Su Yu didn't have much emotion about the first 3. However, when he heard the words, "Divine Throne of Heaven and Earth," Su Yu was shocked. Isn't this the 4th Emperor-based saint artifact that went missing? Is it one of the Supreme Emperor set? Does this mean that the other 3 are also Emperor-based saint artifacts? Moreover, it is highly possible that they are the first 3 Emperor-based saint artifacts that have been lost? The Supreme Emperor Set. Su Yu remembered this name deeply. "Yunxian, are there any other items recorded in that booklet?" Su Yu asked. The booklet that Wang Yunxian had picked up recorded all extraordinary items. Wang Yunxian said, "Yes, but not many. Some of the words are too obscure for me to understand. You can study it yourself." As he spoke, he took out the booklet and gave it to Su Yu. Su Yu said, This is very important to you, isn't it? Haha, don't be so pretentious. Isn't it just a lousy booklet? Do you think I'm afraid that you will steal my job by learning craftsmanship? Wang Yunxian laughed. Su Yu cupped his fists at him. Thank you very much. After a pause, he said, the Dakini escaped, but I can guarantee that she won't be able to escape for long. Wang Yunxuan's face darkened a little. He tried his best to pull himself together. Don't force her. If heaven wants her dead, she can't escape her destiny. If heaven wants her alive, no one can kill her. Destiny? Su Yu's eyes flickered with a hint of defiance. What he loved the most was to fight against fate. Chapter 1501. Goodbye. Su Yu returned to the outside world. Outside the secret room, by Wan Qing, Yongye Wuheng, and the others had been waiting for a long time. Brother Su, the gods of the God Realm Empire will meet you. Yongye Chushue shouted outside the secret room. Su Yu opened the stone door and showed himself. The first thing that people saw was Su Yu wearing a crown. Usually, Su Yu gave everyone a feeling that he was amiable and approachable. However, when he wore the crown, he gave off an indescribable feeling of majesty. Yongye Wuheng, who had wanted to laugh a few times, swallowed his words and thought to himself, he is quite suitable for this emperor's attire. The God Realm Empire was unified for the first time, so Su Yu had to meet the gods. Let's go. Su Yu turned into a light and landed in a new palace. The palace was magnificent, shrouded in fairy energy, shining with colorful auspicious clouds and flying cranes. It was like a celestial palace of a divine king that had left the realm, extremely mysterious. Inside and outside the palace, the creatures who came to meet him were like floating clouds, stretching to the end of the world. Both the gods and the heroes of the world stood straight in front of the palace. When a light flew over their heads, standing on the top of the palace, countless creatures knelt down. Long live Emperor Yu! They shouted in unison, shaking the whole empire. Countless weak creatures also kowtowed to welcome their new emperor. Su Yu stood with his hands behind his back and a crown on his head. Su Yu felt like he was standing at the peak of all living beings, and all of them were worshipping him. He felt like he was standing at the peak of all living beings. You may rise, Su Yu said indifferently. Only then did the crowd rise and bow to him. Only the 200 gods in the front could see Su Yu's face. The creatures behind could only see the figure covered by clouds and mist. Those behind could not even see the palace. Even so, no one dared to slack off. Putting aside Emperor Yu's terrifying battle prowess and his 4 followers who possessed extraordinary strength, just the terrifying snow-white god artifact alone possessed the power to destroy the world. It was enough to deter them to the point where they had no other thoughts of disloyalty. He was a well-deserved king. Emperor Yu, we wrongly accused Emperor Yu of being a traitor of the demon dimension. We wronged the insidious Dakini. Please punish us, Emperor Yu. The first to ask was the Thunder Emperor, the representative of the Western Alliance. They were supposed to be on Su Yu's side, but they couldn't withstand the Dakinis sowing discord between them. Su Yu calmly glanced at him and the other deities present. No matter what you have said about me in the past or what you have done, I will let bygones be bygones, but this will not happen again. If anyone dares to question this emperor again and tries to divide the God Realm Empire, I will kill them without mercy. Hearing this, many deities heaved a sigh of relief. Many deities who had been instigated to kill Su Yu felt relieved. Feather Emperor is wise. All of the deities shouted in unison. Su Yu nodded and waved his hand. Bring the remaining evil members of the Dakini. Shua, under the escort of Yongye Wuheng, countless former members of the Imperial Guard, as well as the gods that were being nurtured in the ancient ruins, were brought forward one after another. There were tens of thousands of them, and no less than 30 of them were gods. All-access merchant god, Xing deity, sword deity, listen to my orders. The 3 gods appeared one after another and knelt on one knee. Set up the interrogation division to investigate them. Those who indiscriminately killed the innocent in the past, kill them. Those who commit crimes will have their cultivation crippled. Those with light crimes would be restricted and enslaved. The rest of the people would be incorporated into the fleet as soldiers. Such a swift and decisive method really made the deities sigh. Compared with the hypocritical kindness of the Dakini, such a ruthless method refreshed their worldview. Such a style was suitable for today's chaotic world. Yes, the three deities said solemnly. Suyu said again, "Summon the first prince, the second princess, and the sixth princess of the demon realm." The three imprisoned members of the royal family of the demon realm came to the deities under the watchful eyes of everyone. Some of the deities couldn't help but feel extremely nervous. They were the demons. The first prince and the other two had just been released. Before they could figure out what had happened in the God Realm Empire, they were led by Yongye Chushue to see the emperor. When they learned that the new emperor had released them, they were extremely perturbed and puzzled. Looking at a silver-haired young man with a towering crown on his head, who was exuding infinite divine power and majesty, the three of them couldn't help but feel nervous. Subconsciously, they bowed down and said, "Your Majesty, you may rise. You have been wronged in the past 7 years." What? The first prince, the second princess, and the sixth princess were all stunned. Why did this voice sound so familiar? Looking up and taking a closer look, the faces of the three of them changed dramatically, looking a little funny. Suyu? As soon as he finished speaking, Yongye Chushue scolded him softly. "How dare you? Who allowed you to call Emperor Yu's name directly?" The first prince and the second princess immediately came to their senses. Only the sixth princess was still staring at Suyu in disbelief. When Suyu fell into the heavenly lake, he was only a stage 4 mortal fairy. He ascended to the throne of the Great Western Alliance by using various means. But 7 years later, his strength was outstanding, and his terrible divine power was comparable to that of the demon emperor of the generation. The deities prostrated themselves, all from the bottom of their hearts. The change was so great that it was as if the world had been turned upside down. Suddenly, she had an illusion that Suyu was flying higher and higher, while she had lost her wings. She could only stand on the ground and look up, watching Suyu gradually disappear from her sight. Suyu said, "It was me who invited you to join the God Realm Empire. You have suffered for many years. Now you are free. Here are some resources suitable for the use of the demon race. Consider it my personal compensation." Suyu threw over a space ring, which contained many special spiritual items of the Lost Nation, which were also suitable for the use of the demon race. The first prince glanced at it and was shocked. At this time, he heard Suyu say, "Now you are free. If you are willing to leave, I will not stop you. If you are willing to stay, I welcome you on behalf of the God Realm Empire." The first prince was stunned. He glanced at the deities who were in awe of Suyu and thought about the vast starry sky. He had nowhere else to go. He said, "Our original intention was to join the God Realm Empire, but there were many twists and turns. The three of us are willing to serve the Empire." "Good. I welcome you on behalf of the God Realm Empire," Suyu said, and at the same time, he said to the deities, "The three of them are the heroes who helped me escape from the demon realm. They have the same reason as us to fight against the demon realm. This concerns their life and death, so the deities can rest assured." In this regard, the deities were certainly relieved. With Suyu's promise, what else did they have to worry about? "Finally, I will reorganize 10 fleets and recruit strong men from all sides. I hope you will mobilize the strong men from the cavern world, because the war with the demon realm will soon begin." Hearing this, their hearts palpitated. What was to come would eventually come. They had been preparing for this day for a long time. After dealing with a series of major events, Suyu chose to retreat again. Before the retreat, he met with Yongye Chushue and the others, as well as the all-access merchant god and the others. "I will retreat for 2 months. If there are any emergencies here, I will leave it to you. Yongye Chushue Yongye Wuheng Luo Shue, and Bai Wanqing nodded gently. Except for Bai Wanqing, the rest of them were in high positions and had governed a country 10 times larger than the God Realm Empire. Handing it over to them was tantamount to testing their skills. You go. I have something to say to the all-access merchant god and the Xing deity. The 4 of them left one after another. Bai Wanqing wanted to say something but stopped, so she left silently. When only the 2 of them were left, Su Yu said, "How is it? Have you found Xing Yuanxin and Yang Tai?" Now that the world was united and all had surrendered to Su Yu, if they were hiding, they should have shown up at this moment. However, the eyes of the all-access merchant god and the Xing deity dimmed at the same time. Are they dead? Su Yu frowned. If they had died after becoming gods, he would have been at his wits' end. Resurrection was ineffective against gods. Shaking her head, the Xing deity said, "Thank you, Emperor Yu, for your love, but Yuanxin did not have the fortune to enjoy it." After saying a few words, the Xing deity's eyes became moist and she choked with sobs. The all-access merchant god's tone was low, and he took over the conversation. "We searched the souls of the Dakini who chased them. The 2 children escaped into the ancient ruins, but they disappeared in a door." Door? Su Yu's eyes showed a thoughtful look. Could it be the door of time? That door exists in ancient memories. It is extremely mysterious, and we do not know where it leads to. Those children are likely to be in danger. Su Yu's eyes flashed slightly. That might not be the case. Zhan Wushuang and the others dared to enter this door, so they must know the mystery of this door. The danger was not necessarily great. You can rest assured that they may not die. It will just take some effort to find them, Su Yu said. I will find them. With this promise, their expressions eased a lot, and they thanked him and left. After a long time, Su Yu said, "Wanqing, do you have something to say?" In the void, a beautiful figure suddenly appeared. It was Bai Wanqing, who had left. She had never left, but had casually created an illusion of leaving. In fact, she had been standing in the same place and had never left. Bai Wanqing smiled sweetly. No matter how exquisite the magical powers of the epic-making dragon are, they can't hide from your eyes. Su Yu said, "It was the Starry Sky Divine Book on you that exposed you." Bai Wanqing took out the Starry Sky Divine Book in surprise, and could not help but smile helplessly. She said, "I see. Just right. That's what I wanted to talk about." Su Yu's eyes flashed, and he looked expectant. "Have you finally sensed the exact direction of the thread of fate?" Speaking of which, the ancient ruins had been swept away by Su Yu, and the power of time and space that filled it had dissipated. There should be no more power that could stop her from exploring. Strange, didn't you find any traces of old friends in the ancient ruins? I found it when I was at the entrance of the ruins. The thread of fate leads straight into the ruins. Bai Wanqing was surprised. What? Su Yu's expression froze. Are you sure it's in the ruins? I'm sure. Su Yu's expression changed again and again. The ruins. Everything in the ruins was gone. Where was Xia Jingyu's trace? Seeing that Su Yu's expression was not right, Bai Wanqing said guiltily, "Wait a moment, I'll take another look." When she finished speaking, her eyes emitted a purple glow. Her gaze moved along the thread of fate, and finally fixed on Su Yu. To be precise, it was fixed on the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Then the thread of fate is in there? Here? Su Yu was a little surprised. He glanced around, but Xia Jingyu was nowhere to be seen. Wait a minute. Su Yu suddenly discovered something. He had only brought out 2 things from the ancient ruins. One was the ice stone, and the other was the fragment of the Gate of Time. The fragment of the Gate of Time was in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Su Yu took them out, and Bai Wanqing's gaze immediately fixed on the stone. She said, "This is it. Why did the thread of fate pass through these stones?" What? Su Yu was shocked, and his gaze was fixed on these stones. Xia Jingyu was also on the other side of the gate of time. A trace of regret arose in his heart. If he had known, his priority would have been to seize the gate of time. Now it was too late to say anything. Can you confirm again if the thread of fate between me and her has any other continuation? Su Yu said, unwilling to give up. Bai Wanqing sighed and peered silently. After a while, she shook her head gently. Unfortunately, the thread of fate between you and your old friend only leads to the gate of time. It doesn't exist anywhere in the Xing River. Su Yu was deep in thought. Could the other side of the gate of time be an independent world different from the Xing River? If so, where would it be?